The Hagmann Hagmann Report for today. It's a terrific Tuesday edition. It is Tuesday, March 31st, 2015. This is a live broadcast. I'm Doug Hagmann in studio with my son, fellow investigator, fellow researcher Joe Hagmann. Together we are the Hagmann Hagmann Report. I want to thank you all for joining us. Thank you for your belief in trust in us as we walk through this ever-increasing minefield together. And I got to tell you, folks, I don't think I've ever seen in my half of a century of life, chuckle out there, just the increasing velocity of headlines and news about the reshaping of global power, and it's all about global power in the larger sense. We're going to take a macro view of what's going on, our analysis of what's going on in the Middle East and all across the globe here tonight, along with our number two, Stan Deyo, of course, Tuesdays with Stan, the real Indiana Jones. What a great guy, him and Holly. And you know what? We've had numerous requests to have Holly on talk about her book, Dare to Prepare. We're going to float that out privately with Stan. But anyway, just want to say that we're so grateful that you are joining us tonight, deliberately listening, tuning us in. We appreciate that, whether you're in a patrol car, 18-wheeler, or in front of your computer. Thank you so very much for doing that. Now, our home base on the internet is hagmannandhagmann.com. That's hagmannandhagmann.com. I've kind of neglected a lot of the content on this. I've been doing a lot of research, and I got to tell you, I'm very disturbed. We're very disturbed collectively here about what's taking place, what people are not seeing, and it's really critical that we get a good understanding of the world events, and especially in the Middle East. Now, Joe, first of all, welcome tonight to the studio, of course. Welcome.
Glad to be here.
You know, it's interesting because this is the last day of March, and just some small talk, get this out of the way. You know, it's the last day of March, and outside of the studios here at the Hagmann Hagmann Studios, 3 inches maybe? 2 inches of snow on the ground?
2 to 4 inches. Well,
it varies.
Woke up this morning to snow on the ground and had to actually shovel this morning, but it has gotten warmer and the snow is melting away.
Well, you know,
it was surprising.
Yeah, you know, it was interesting because I woke up early. I mean, like 3, and looked out and didn't see anything, and then early at the studio, and then
it was
looked out.
3.
Oh my goodness!
No snow.
You know, at 5 o'clock in the morning, and it was like, okay, you know, it's snowing, and then got up from my desk about 7:30 and looked out, and okay, now I'm, really. April Fool's early, but anyway.
It's all right. Tomorrow's supposed to be 50, Thursday 65.
Yeah, good weather for, just good weather. Anyway, so we'll be talking with Stan Deyo, hour number 2, and but starting the program off tonight, and I think it's so important to understand a couple of things. Man, where do you even start? But I suppose, if you look at what's taking place in Yemen, I think what we really need to understand is what's really going on in Yemen right now. If you're confused about the war, I understand. Yemen, on older maps, it was previously called Aden, A-D-E-N. And it's got one of the oldest and richest civilizations in the Middle East, but it has been really racked with the violence for quite a long time. Back in the 60s, a pro-Arab nationalist faction clashed with the British. They wanted Yemen to become a Western-controlled national resource hub and devolved into brutal fighting with both sides using terrorism. Now, Yemen's first president, Ali Abdullah Saleh. That's Yemen's first president. Well, he was in power from 1990 to 2012. Now, Saleh was supported by the U.S., but he was also double-dealing. Now, this history is important to understand, because these wars and conflicts and stuff, they just don't happen like overnight. Well, again, the U.S. backed Saleh, but Saleh was dealing speaking out of both sides of his mouth during his tenure. The Arab Spring caused the ouster of Saleh. And America, the United States, at that time helped broker an immunity deal, immunity from prosecution, in return for him leaving office. The Telegraph, in the UK, had reported, and I'm going to quote directly from the Telegraph. And this, what Joe's going to get into, this is a backdrop for this. But for years, the Americans saw Ali Abdullah Saleh as a key ally in the fight against Al-Qaeda. He allowed his air bases to be used by U.S. drones to strike at the at the movement operatives, and gladly received Western aid in development cash and arms supplies. Yet, according to claims in the United Nations report, one of the first things Saleh did when his three-decade rule was threatened by the 2011 Arab Spring was strike a deal, secret deal, that is, to give an entire southern province to Al-Qaeda. The more he could portray Yemen as falling into terrorist hands, he calculated, the more the West would want to keep him in office at all costs. Well, the U.S. brokered Saleh's replacement through Yemen's current president, Hadi, H-A-D-I. Hadi was a long-time high-level assistant to Saleh. The presidential, if you look at the presidential ballots following Saleh's ouster, not much of a choice. There's only one name on there, Hadi, H-A-D-I. The opposition that took over the country, the Houthis, they're also called the Zaydis, Z-A-Y-D-I. Well, those people are terrorists. But now they're closer to, well, you would say Iranians, because they're Shiites in ideology. They're closer to Shiites than Sunnis. Remember, Iran is Shiite, Saudi Arabia, Sunni. Different sects of Islam, S-E-C-T-S, of Islam. Despite the different sects between these two, they are virtually, well, the Houthis are almost indistinguishable from the Sunni fundamentalist terrorists. So, although a Shia group, Zaydi theological differences with Sunnis are limited. And it's important to understand this. This is not necessarily an ideological fight, as you might hear some of the talking heads on the radio and on television say, between the Shia and the Sunnis, and this is a centuries-old dispute. And no. This is an intelligence-backed operation that's causing all of this, masked as this ideological war. Now, it's hard to wrap really, excuse me, it's difficult for us as normal people. I mean, normal people that have jobs, you work, you go to work, you've got a number of things to do, you take your kids to school. You really want to understand you really need, do I really need to understand what's going on in Yemen? I mean, really? But it's important for us to do that because we're being played by the globalists, and we're being played by the globalists in America and in the UK and all across Europe. And, well, that's why you tune in this program, because you don't have to do hours and virtually days of research to understand the backdrop of this. Well, what's behind the Houthi revolt that's going on? Who's behind it? What's behind it? If you think it's Iran, as many of the talking heads are saying, no. Guess who? It's the deposed Saleh. He's back. And if you look at how the Houthis have been able to really run over the country, take it over so quickly, the troops, the police, they're still loyal to Saleh. So at his instructions while the Houthis advanced, the soldiers and guards simply walked away from their posts when Saleh told them to. The bottom line here, we're not looking at too many good guys in this fight. Now, some people are calling this a proxy war between Saudi Arabia and Iran. That's not necessarily true. Saudi Arabia is directly bombing Yemen. It's not doing so through a proxy.
Let's go through what some of the articles state. Saudi troops clashed with Yemen Houthi fighters on Tuesday in the heaviest exchange of cross-border fire since the start of the Saudi-led air offensive last week, while Yemeni's foreign minister called for a rapid Arab intervention on the ground. Saudi Arabia has been leading a coalition of Arab states since last Thursday in an air campaign against the Shiite Houthis, who emerged as the most powerful force in the Arabian Peninsula's poorest country when they seized Yemen's capital last year. In another article, it says regional rivals Saudi Arabia and Iran traded accusations Tuesday over the escalating conflict in Yemen, which the UN human rights chief warned was on the brink of total collapse. Aid groups warned of humanitarian crisis unfolding with air and sea blockades, making it impossible to send desperately needed assistance as casualties mount. In the heaviest raids yet of the 6-day Saudi-led air war against the Shiite Houthi rebels, explosions lit up the sky over Sana'a, and Monday night rockets in other parts of the country on Tuesday. Amnesty International accused the Saudi-led coalition of turning a blind eye to civilian deaths, as it reported 4 children were among 6 burned to death in strikes on LBB in central Yemen. It goes on to say the spokesman for the Saudi-led coalition said it does not intend to kill civilians, even though the Houthis had moved fighters into their villages. Collateral damage can happen, but I confirm to you that the coalition takes all care, said Brigadier General Ahmed Asiri. This article goes on to talk about the children that have been affected. At least 62 children have been killed and 30 injured during the fighting in Yemen over the past week. While the other article goes on to talk about the conflict that has brought the country to a civil war that has already been on the verge of chaos since the Arab Spring and Washington's forced to evacuate its personnel from the main battlefield in the covert U.S. drone war against al-Qaeda. Yemen was one of the springboards where we were able to launch through military bases we had set up there. Now, it goes on to say that in this Reuters article, in the southern port of Aden, Houthi fighters and allied army units pressed an air offensive against forces loyal to Haiti, trying to capture the last remaining major stronghold of the absent president's forces. At least 36 people were killed when Houthi forces shelled Haiti loyalists in Aden. Jets from Saudi-led coalition bombed Houthi positions near the airport.
Let me just bump in here for a second, because a couple of things, and you're going to hear this, you're going to read this on internet blogs, you're going to see this on websites. As Joe is talking here, when you've got the Houthis, you got Saleh, you got Hadi, all involved in this, and then you've got people saying, well, very simply, this is a religious war or jihad between Sunni and Shia Muslims, like I said earlier. This is what people are saying, and people will say, okay, because of this craziness, let them fight it out, and there's no rationality behind this. It's the ideological aspects that are at the helm here. Well, not so fast, because you've got that's the equivalent of saying Arab Spring was a spontaneous protest. In a search for, or a march toward democracy in the Middle East and freedom in the Middle East. That's not true. I mean, that's obviously not true. That's patently false. Everything that's going on right now in Yemen, or the majority of it, and spreading across the Middle East from Yemen, spreading outward, is backed by Western forces, by British, by Israeli, by U.S., by the Saudi intelligence. Okay, all of these are combined in this really incestuous kind of group to fund and to foment this chaos in the Middle East for a specific purpose, and that purpose is ultimately, look where this is going. Get yourself a map because, Joe, I mean, look, right now, the Suez Canal, transit lines, or transit lanes, if you will. I call them transit lines because
the energy gateways.
You know, look, right now, the Houthi tribal militias are well funded and they're backed by Western intelligence. They've got ship killer missiles. These are the same kind of missiles that Hezbollah used in its war against Israel. And so they will unleash and expect this to happen. They're going to unleash this mass wave of attacks inside Saudi Arabia as Saudi Arabia grows more involved in this war. I'm not going to say conflict, but this intelligence war, this banker war. But look at a map and see that the main point is the operational control over the strait leading from the Red Sea or into the Red Sea and the Suez Canal. Look, direct missile fire can be launched at any type of class or any type and class of ship transiting the Suez Canal when it reaches the entrance to the Indian Ocean. Frankly, here you're going to see ships going down to block the strait, or you could see. I'm not going to say you will see, but what would happen if the straits, the Suez Canal, and the strait leading into the Red Sea? What would happen if they were blocked?
Well, you could be sure that that blockage would be cleared out one way or another. It said that the Bab el-Mandeb shipping lane, which connects the Red Sea with the Gulf of Aden and Arabian Sea, is a vital energy gateway.
Correct.
More than 3 million barrels of oil daily pass to Europe, Asia, and the United States.
Well, these are choke points. These are Middle East energy production Middle East energy choke points.
Yeah, and these choke points and the areas around them have gone through years of unrest. This article goes on to state Saudi Arabia has a history of wielding influence in its poorer neighbor and fought a brief and indecisive ground conflict against Houthis in the border area of 2009, supporting then-leader Saleh. Civil war comes after years of unrest and disintegrating central authority in a country also dealing with tribal discontent and Al-Qaeda's most potent regional branch, as well as Southern secessionist movement. And it goes on to talk about how this Arab Spring is how Yemen, in the conflict that we see here, and the civil war and the turn towards chaos and collapse, has and is part of the Arab Spring. It stems from the Arab Spring, and that the Arab powers are taking advantage of the unrest over there to combat for vital resources.
Correct, and therein lies the big issue. Now, this is an extension on the taking out of the petrodollar. This is so closely tied to the death of the petrodollar, or the killing off of the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. This is the ground preparation, if you will, or the practical preparation or practical means to take out the U.S. dollar, and hence the United States as any type of viable entity. Because once we are unable to ensure the safe passage of energy and oil through these choke points through the Middle East, which will happen, and it's already virtually happened, then the United States will have lost. We will have lost our ability to function as a nation, basically. And don't underestimate what's going on here. And just one more thing, because there's really three. Now, let's see. If you would take a map, and I would urge everybody listening to this, please get a map of that area, again, from Libya to the west, to Iran to the east, and from Syria to the north, to Egypt to the south. And look at not Egypt, the south part of Sudan, maybe, or whatever, to the south. But look, you got 3 checkpoints here, or 3 choke points. Checkpoints. That's where my mind's at. You get 3 choke points. You got the Suez Canal. You've got the Bab el-Mandeb Strait there at the southern point of Yemen, or at the southwestern port of Yemen. And then you've got the Strait of Hormuz. Now, the Suez Canal, 2.2 roughly % of global oil, petroleum production goes through that strait. Not much, right? You've got the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, 3.4, and then you got the Strait of Hormuz, roughly somewhere around 20%, 18, 17, 18, 19%. The production, of oil, Saudi Arabia, 12.9%. But here's the kicker, and here's a dirty little secret people don't really understand. Saudi Arabia has 6 main oil wells, primary oil wells. They're responsible for about 13% of the world's global petroleum production. Saudi Arabia was established as a CIA outpost in the Middle East because of the oil. The royal family was coronated, if you will, by the CIA, OSS and CIA. Well, today, their main oil wells are pumping out 90% water. Think about that for a second. Their major oil production is hobbled. Their wells, 90% water is coming out of the. You pump water in to get the oil out. It's a very simplified explanation, of course. What's coming out? Oil? No. 90% is water. So you've got to look at other oil-producing nations outside of Saudi Arabia. Iraq, 3.4%. Do you think for a moment between Iraq and Iran, which is roughly 7-8% of the oil production, and Kuwait, throwing Kuwait in there too, do you think for a moment that the activities, starting with Desert Shield / Desert Storm in 1990, through today, through the Arab Spring, and even what's going on in Yemen today, do you think that this could be a little bit about oil? Perhaps. And the other aspect of it would be to take out the dollar. It almost seems like, wait a minute, there are two dueling policies here, or you're looking at kind of this schizophrenic kind of game plan. Because why try to see? It looks like you're trying to save the petrodollar. At the same time, you're trying to tank it. No. Well, not really. I mean, there's 2 sides of the conflict that we're pumping up both sides. The ultimate objective is to to grab the energy and oil, but do so by killing off the dollar, by the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency, and replacing it with a global economic currency. So, I mean, if you look at in the smaller scale, it's confusing. But if you look at the macro game plan, well, then you understand. So, 3 choke points: the Suez Canal, Bab el-Mandeb, which is just outside of Yemen, and the Strait of Hormuz. Those 3 choke points. Watch those Middle East choke points. Watch and also pay very close attention to the pipelines and to the oil and energy transits.
Well, I have an update on the Iranian-U.S. nuclear deal.
Okay.
Nuclear deal with Iran reached on all key aspects. Iran and 6 major world powers have managed to reach a preliminary agreement on all the key aspects of a deal over Tehran's controversial nuclear program. Russia's FM has announced, adding that the sides have begun drafting the text. Experts from Iran and P5+1 have started drafting a preliminary deal, and the document could be expected either within the next few hours or later on Wednesday. Sergei Lavrov hopes, however, clearing the technical details of the final deal may take until June, he added. We can quite certainly say that on all key aspects of the final settlement of this problem, the ministries have reached principal consent that will be, hopefully, in the next few hours, maybe a day, put on paper. The experts were tasked with this just now, Lavrov told reporters. The preliminary agreement will include the verification of mechanisms guaranteeing the peaceful nature of Tehran's nuclear program and will stipulate the lifting of sanctions. He added, The agreement includes an all-encompassing approach to the settlement of Iran's nuclear issue, including methods of verification of the nuclear program's exclusively peaceful nature by the IAEA, as well as extensive provisions on lifting sanctions. Tehran also hopes that the draft agreement will soon be finalized, with Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif saying the sides will hopefully start drafting tomorrow. Negotiations were completed for today. They will resume meeting at the expert level in the morning at 6:30. Then Iran will join, perhaps the ministries, said the French minister, political director for Iran affairs. However, he cast doubt on whether the political framework agreement would be reached during the current round of talks. There is still much work to do, he says, that from the French foreign minister. So they said the draft document could be on their desks within hours, if not within a day, and that if they have on paper what they agreed to in their talks, they will have a deal.
One of the countries that we better look at, and no one is talking much about, Pakistan. And I suggest this, what's going on in the Middle East is so fluid and so it's got the stability right now. Anything could set off a regional, just anything could set this off, and the world could change in an instant. Please understand that. We have to look at what Pakistan is doing with respect to this war in Yemen.
Now, keep in mind, Pakistan has a nice supply of nuclear weapons.
Yes, they do. If you looked at the Wall Street Journal, I think it was last week, and you got to understand too. If you look at my office and our studio here, just imagine several small trees or big trees cut down because of the paper and newspaper articles. And there was a report last week in the Wall Street Journal saying that Pakistan, given its relationship to Saudi Arabia, is considering getting involved in the war against the Houthi rebels in Yemen. Now, it was about a week and a half ago, 10 days ago maybe, Saudi Arabia, at the request of the ousted Yemeni President Hadi, initiated airstrikes and a naval blockade against Iran-backed Shia Houthi rebels. They captured the Yemeni capital of Sana'a earlier this year. Now, the Yemeni government claimed that the Houthis were planning to overthrow the government and create a Shia state in Yemen, while the Houthis see themselves as combating religious intolerance from the government. Now, that's BS, okay? It's more than that. This is not just a Sunni-Shia conflict or war. This is, please, anytime you see that, that's very much like saying what we're seeing here in the United States is a Republican versus Democrat ideology. No. They're all the same party. Now, there's differences, obviously. I'm not trying to minimize the ideological differences between Sunnis and Shia. However, you've got to understand that both the Sunnis and Shia are being backed by the dollars through the U.S. State Department, John Kerry, and previous to that, Hillary Clinton, and even previous to that. Okay, but so understand the complexities of this. Do not allow yourselves to be limited by this Sunni-Shia ideological rift, because it's bigger than that. It's about oil, and we play that clip often, and I'll tell you right now. Here's what it's all about.
How much are you worth?
I have no idea. How much do you want?
No, I just want to know what you're worth. Over 10 million?
Oh, my, yes.
Why are you doing it? How much better can you eat? What can you buy that you can't already afford?
The future, Mr. Gitz. The future.
And there it is. This is about the future. Who is going to own the future? Which nation state, which globalist family, which Illuminati family is going to own the future? Oil, energy. This is what it's all about. They don't. Do you think for 1 minute they give a darn about some Islamic ideological difference? No. They'll exploit the heck out of it, but they don't care about it. You can say let them fight all they want. Well, let's clean it up. But the goal here, at least in this area, is a redesigning of the power structure in the Middle East in order to see who's on top, the families, for the future of the oil and energy. That's what this is all about. And here in the United States, it's the same. And Joe, with your permission, with your consent, let me just, this is something that people need to pay attention to as well. We are seeing, and I'll just be as brief as possible. You go back to the Tower of Babel, go back to Nimrod, go back to the Bible, go back to, who was the ultimate founder of the New World Order? I mean, we could trace it back to who? Nimrod, right? The Tower of Babel. Well, as we go through, and we see the signs, we see the symbols, we see the monuments created all across the globe, and in Washington, and in the Vatican, and elsewhere, commemorating the Nimrod, commemorating the power, the Tower of Babel. You see the obelisks, and we're getting into Greek mythology and Babylonian gods and Egyptian and Babylonian gods. For example, Horus and Osiris and Semiramis. Tom Horn writes about this and talks about this, and others talk about this. But at the crux of all of this, this is what's driving what's happening in the Middle East. This is what's driving what's going on in Yemen and elsewhere. This is at the very, very back wall of the room, which is clouded. The room is clouded by smoke and mist, and even the lens through which we look through glass darkly is covered by blood. But you see, this is all about good versus evil. And let me just tell you this: as we enter into, and as we have passed and enter into the summer, understand the occult practices that we see taking place, the human sacrifices which will be made regardless. They're following a calendar. They're following an occult calendar. When I say they, I'm talking about the power elite, the globalists, the Illuminati, ultimately the people that have the bloodlust for the future, because it is about the future, Mr. Getz. But the prime architecture of the New World Order is occult. Let's look at let's take a quick overview of the occult yearly festivals very quickly, because when we look at what's taking place globally, we have to look at the high occult holy days. I'll mention them and then move on. And think back to what has happened this past year. Let's say from the winter solstice forward. Can you think of any events that have taken place? Winter solstice lasts for 13 weeks, is minor Sabbath. December 21st is the Yule. December 21st through the 22nd is the winter solstice / Yule. It's one of the Illuminati's human sacrifice nights. That's right. I said it, human sacrifice, December 21 through 22nd. Then February 1st and 2nd, the Candlemas. Now you've heard, my goodness, I think you've heard Doc Marquis and other people talk about this. It's also Groundhog Day, February 1st and 2nd. It's one of the Illuminati's human sacrifice nights. February 14th is Valentine's Day. Yes, that's considered an Illuminati occult yearly high holy day festival. Spring equinox, of course, from the winter solstice, from December 21st through March 21st is the winter solstice time period, 13 weeks. It's the minor Sabbath. And then you get into the spring equinox, lasting 13 weeks from March 21st onward, 13 weeks forward from there. Now, the spring equinox does not require necessarily human sacrifice. but it doesn't disallow it. You've got March 21st and 22nd, the goddess Astara. Easter, by the way, is the first Sunday after the first new moon after Astara. March 21st is one of the Illuminati's human sacrifice nights. That's where the word Easter comes from, is Astara. April 1st, tomorrow, it's All Fool's Day. Yes, April Fool's Day. No, it's All Fool's Day. That's why I dislike jokes so much on April 1st. I really do. But All Fool's Day, April 1st, is precisely 13 weeks since New Year's Day. There's number 13. April 19th through May 1st, the blood sacrificed to the beast. A fire sacrifice is required on April 19th. Can you think, folks, back in history, U.S. history, of any fire sacrifice during the month of April in America? I'll give you a hint. Waco. Fire sacrifice is required. April 30 to May 1st, Beltane. Beltane, which is also called Walpurgis Night. Now, this is the highest day on the Druidic witches' calendar. May 1st is the Illuminati's second most sacred holiday, and human sacrifice is required. Look, ladies and gentlemen, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, this is all just garbage. You know what? It goes back to, it doesn't matter what you and I believe. We're normal, right? I mean, we're normal, sensible human beings. We got families. We got stuff to do. We got jobs. We're responsible. We worship a Christian. I mean, we worship the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We don't subscribe to these crazy, nonsensical occult junk. So why should we care about it? Because you're looking at the enemy's calendar. You're looking at the enemy's playbook. You're looking at their playbook, what they believe. And remember, they don't care what you believe. It's what they believe that's important. This is why it's important. The summer solstice, 13 weeks, beginning on June 21st. That's when the sun reaches its northernmost point in its journey across the sky. And then you've got Litha. It's one of the June 21st. It's one of the Illuminati's human sacrifice nights. July 4th is our Independence Day. Is 13 days after the day of Litha, and 66 days from April 30th. Just 66 days from April 30th. That's July 4th. July 19th, 13 days before. July 31st through August 1st. A great Sabbath festival. August is one of the August 1st is one of the Illuminati's human sacrifice nights, and then you get into the autumn equinox. Now, remember, you got the winter solstice lasting 13 weeks, the spring equinox, the summer solstice, and then you've got the autumn equinox. You got the year separated into 4 quarters or 4 13-week time periods. So the autumnal equinox, or the autumn equinox, whichever you prefer, September 21st. It's one of the Illuminati sacrifice nights. 21st through 22nd is the actual equinox. And then October 31st, which is Samhain, also known as Halloween or All Hallows Eve. That's one of the Illuminati's highest days of human sacrifice. So the death, and I think if you look at what has taken place in history, deaths through disease, accidents, even war, can and do count spiritually as a human sacrifice, as long as they were initiated by the globalists, by the Illuminati, by the power brokers, by the power elite. If the Holy Spirit brings such events to your attention, pleading the blood of Jesus over this shed blood and death will neutralize any occult powers gained through these events, so please do that. But one last mention, and then I'm going to turn it back over to Joe, is child sacrifice. You know, we've seen incestuous relationship. If you understand history, and if you know history in Babylon, Nimrod married Semiramis, his mother. Even when Nimrod supposedly returned as Tammuz, he remained her lover. Not only was Semiramis the mother of God, in quotation marks twice over, but she was the continued lover of both. So, now in the Egyptian version, Osiris, Nimrod, married Isis, his sister. And I draw your attention again to the word Isis. I-S-I-S. Not only was this the Egyptian goddess married to Nimrod or Osiris, but ISIS, isn't it interesting? ISIS is the start or the main player in the Islamic State of Iraq and Syria. Coincidence? I think not. So that's the backdrop of what we're seeing, and isn't it interesting that it's not? I don't I don't know. You look at the plane, for example, that went down in Germany and attributed to the, or you know what? Rather than that, look at the. Remember the Bardo Museum massacre? I guess if we're looking at events that could fall into this calendar of occultism, the Bardo massacre on March 18th, just a couple of weeks ago, that happened during that period, that very distinct period, the 317 through 321. There were 17 that were dead as a result of that. That happened, by the way, on the 33rd parallel. The reason I bring this all up is because a lot of these events that are trigger events, that are hinge moment events, are planned, and they're actually used as sacrifices. So, folks, what we're seeing here is orchestrated. It's not spontaneous. It's not limited to Sunni and Shia. It is not limited to the region. It is not about it's Western backed. I guess I probably should say what it is about, as opposed to what it's not about. It is about the future. It's about oil. It's about energy. It's about who is on top in terms of the world globalist powers. And yes, it does involve a certain amount of human sacrifice, which does play into the depopulation aspect of things. And we're seeing depopulation over there. And by the way, when the U.S. does loses world's reserve currency status, when that happens, we're going to see such a hyperinflation occur here in America that you're going to see really virtually a change overnight in terms of what's going to happen in our urban areas. Just imagine this, going to your computer and checking your balance and your checking account and getting a 404 error, going to an ATM and sticking your card in and not being able to get money out because the banks are closed due to a bank holiday until they restructure. This is what we're preparing for. It's estimated that really millions will die pretty quickly here in America when that civil unrest happens. The haves versus the have-nots, the prepared versus the unprepared, the individuals who have been buried their heads in the sand and not paid attention to events, suddenly waking up to find that, hey, their world's changed overnight, not prepared for it, versus those who are prepared for it. And I just want to say that what happens over there, don't think what happens over there is not going to affect what happens over here, because it's all tied together and it's all been planned and gamed out. And when we talked to Joe and I talked about this yesterday about the infiltration of groups. Well, that's part and parcel to what we're talking about as well. So all of this is tied together. I just want to bring that out. And then, Joe, go ahead. There's so much more. But Pakistan, I mentioned before I went off on the tangent, you got to look, too. I mean, where are they going to fall into this? Where are they going to fall into this mess?
Yeah. That's yet to be seen. Netanyahu issued a statement. Iran deal will allow nuclear breakout in less than a year. This is from Reuters out of Jerusalem. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said on Tuesday that the framework Iranian nuclear agreement being sought out by international negotiators will leave Iran with the capability to develop a nuclear weapon in under a year. For nearly a week, the U.S., Britain, France, Germany, Russia, and China have been trying to break an impasse in talks aimed at keeping Iran from just that in exchange for easing international sanctions that are crippling its economy. It appears the deal being formed will leave Iran with underground facilities, the nuclear reactor in Iraq, and with advanced centrifuges, Netanyahu said at a preliminary ceremony. The breakout time for Iran is to obtain fissile material for nuclear bombs that will not take years, as we said at the beginning. In our estimation, it will be reduced to under a year, perhaps far less than that, he went on to say.
We could provide, by the way, America provides countries with plutonium.
Yeah.
We have agreed to provide Iran with plutonium, but that's not good enough because they want to create their own.
In another statement, this from the Times of Israel, the commander of a militia, Iran's revolutionary militia, I don't know how to pronounce this, Bajah, states that they are going to continue to seek to erase Israel from the map. It's non-negotiable, according to an Israel radio report Tuesday. Militia chief Muhammad threatened Saudi Arabia, saying the offensive it is leading in Yemen will have a fate like that fate of Saddam Hussein. His comments were made public as Iran and 6 world powers prepared Tuesday to issue a general statement agreeing to continue nuclear negotiations in a new phase aimed at reaching a comprehensive accord by the end of June. But they go on to say that Iran was stepping up efforts to arm West Bank Palestinians for a battle against Israel, adding the move would lead to Israel's annihilation. Iran's foreign news agency reported, arming the West Bank has started and weapons will be supplied to the people of this region. The Zionists should know that the next war won't be confined to the present borders, that the Mujahideen will push them back, he added.
Okay. Let's stop right there for a second because I think it's important to understand here something that, and I'm getting sick and tired of these people who think they know. They think they know all about the Israeli-Palestinian two-state solutions, and they use words like occupied, illegal occupation. We're talking about this, right? I mean, this is what we're talking about, correct? The Israeli peace talks, ultimately, correct? Two-state solution. I mean, ultimately, this is kind of what we're referring to. Yeah. Where is the word Palestine? People don't. When I hear people, Netanyahu is a warmonger and he's an idiot and he's a devil, he's this and he's that, I get really upset. I really do, because people don't know history. And I get upset about people talking about Israel and not backing Israel, their historical and their title deed claim to that area of the land or that area of the world, because they have no clue with Bible history and history. They listen to sound bites by these progressive Marxist people in the media with absolutely no clue of what they're talking about. And they'll refer to the 1967 borders. Folks, there are no 1967 borders. Those don't exist. Those are armistice lines that stem back to a war that was declared on Israel in 1948 and 49, immediately after its becoming a nation. And it has nothing to do with international boundaries. There never were international boundaries. But just to address the word Palestine, if you look through history books, you're gonna find that the origin of the name Palestine, it's been debated for years, but nobody knows for sure really where that name came from. Now, there is a word believed. The word Palestine could have been derived from the Egyptian and Hebrew word palashet, which was roughly translated to mean migratory, and it was used to describe the inhabitants of the land to the northeast of Egypt, namely the Philistines. Now, the Philistines were an Aegean people. They were related to the Greeks with no connection ethnically, linguistically, or historically with any part of Arabia, who conquered the Mediterranean area that is now Israel and Gaza. So, if you look at this, and just go to the Ottoman Empire, 1517 to 1917, the term Palestine, that was used as a very vague general term to describe the land south of Syria. It was not an official designation. Many Ottomans and Arabs lived in this British mandate of Palestine during the time period. They referred to the area as southern Syria, not Palestine. Now, after World War I, the name Palestine was applied to a territory that was placed under British mandate, period. This area not only included present-day Israel, but also present-day Jordan. Okay, so if you look at the origins of the word Palestine, you won't find it really anywhere. Where's Palestine? Where was Palestine? You've got a British mandated area which applied to the territory that was that included Israel and Jordan. That's all you've got. Leading up to Israel's independence in 1948, it was common for the international press to label Jews, not Arabs, living in the mandate areas Palestinians. It was not until the years after the independence of Israel that the Arabs living in the West Bank and Gaza Strip were called Palestinians. So Arabs cannot even, I won't get into this, but they can't even correctly pronounce the word Palestine in their native tongue. That's right. The word Palestine does not appear in the Quran. The term Palashat appears in the Jewish Tanakh no fewer than 250 times, I should note. And Daniel Pipes does an exhaustive article on this. I don't have it handy, but he does an exhaustive article on the historical origins of Israel. And one of these days we should get into history, because people have this misconception that Israel has violated international law, which is totally bunk, and that there's this land grab by Israel, which is totally bunk. If you look at the West Bank, as it's called, well, the Balfour Declaration and the mandate, the UN or the mandate back in the early 20th century called for possession by Israel of not just the West Bank but the East Bank. You got to understand that the entire 1/2% of Arab land was actually dedicated to Israel by this mandate, but they got much less than that. But anyway, I just had to go off on that because we're ultimately talking about this, and people just don't get it. People don't get it, and people will be quick to say, "Well, the Zionists, it's a Jewish cabal." No, it's not. No, it's not. No, it's not. Sorry.
Two quick headlines before we go to our break and bring Stan on. One, Pentagon loses $500 million in Yemen, gets a $96 billion budget increase. For decades, conservative Republicans have been accusing their liberal counterparts for trying to cure social ills by throwing money at every problem. But Republicans have proven time and time again that when it comes to throwing huge stacks of money, that they hurl as recklessly as Democrats, especially when the problems they're throwing money at is the Pentagon. Barely a week after learning that the military brass cannot account for some $500 million worth of weapons and equipment given to Yemen, Congress last week moved to compensate for the cuts in military spending required by the 2013 sequester law by approving a spending bill for $5.5 trillion over the next decade, including a $96 billion in-off budget account for war-related funding. We cannot let fiscal sanity and national security be
it's
against
off
one another.
It's off book stuff, but go ahead.
Trying to discern which wing on an airplane is more important. You can't have one without the other. That from Republican Trent Franks, Republican from Arizona. The missing supplies, according to a Washington Post report, include hundreds of guns, more than 1 million rounds of ammunition, 4 hand-launched drones with body armor. Also among the missing and unaccounted for items are 3 airplanes, 4 helicopters, and 160 Humvees. How do you lose 160 armored trucks, wrote Eric Boehm of watchdog.org.
Well, I guess you just, what? Yeah, you can't. It's no. And see, this is the black ops part of this. This is boy, we're due for another Pentagon hit, apparently.
Yeah. And, doing this while giving them a budget increase. But yeah, 160 Humvees. How do you lose 160
and airplanes?
Humvees? And 3 airplanes, 4 helicopters, and some rocket propelled rocket launchers here. And then in another article here before we hit the top of the hour break, this about Benghazi. The Benghazi panel summons Hillary Clinton. I don't know if you saw this, Dan.
Yes, I did.
But House panel Tuesday formally requested Hillary Clinton to testify about the private server and email account she used while serving as Secretary of State. Representative Trey Gowdy, chairman of the Select Committee on Benghazi, sent a request to Clinton's personal attorney, David Kendall, requesting that Clinton appear before the committee no later than May 1st for a transcribed interview about the server and email.
By the time it's all said and done, it's not going to. Yeah, look at the fast, rapid pace this is going, right? No, it's not. It's not going fast.
Oh, yeah.
It's going like molasses. So why are they stretching this out?
By the end of her first term, she'll have testified.
Yeah. No,
it goes on to say that the request comes after Gowdy was told that the server had been wiped clean and that it would be impossible to recover the 30,000 emails Clinton deleted last year. Gowdy, in his request to Kendall, also asked Clinton to reconsider her refusal to turn over the server to a neutral third party, which he called a highly unusual, if not unprecedented.
Just think about this in the context of what Joe's talking about. Mark Rosh, a former federal prosecutor, head of computer crimes. Folks, you can commit this to memory because this is good for your personal stuff too. Because we all send emails or we all have things that we save on our computer that we don't want to fall into others' hands. So remember this 5-word sentence. Delete doesn't and restore won't. Think about that. Delete doesn't and restore won't. That's really a key principle in digital forensics. In other words, look, you're not going to delete. Delete is something that doesn't really happen, even in reformatting a drive. The only way to permanently delete the information on a hard drive is to take a sledgehammer and a blowtorch to it, basically. And restore won't. Well, that's yeah. In a lot of cases, you're not going to get everything back, and it's going to be not necessarily in the right order. It's kind of like, it's difficult, but it's a good rule to live by. Or just 2 words if you want. Delete doesn't. Okay, just remember that. So, and remember the Rose Law Firm billing records that went missing for 2 years by Hillary Clinton. They couldn't find them, subpoenaed by Ken Starr, I believe it was. And I don't recall if that was Ken Starr or I'm not sure, but the Rose Law Firm billing records that were missing for 2 years. Oh, look where I found them in the White House private residence in the closet. 2 years too late, and once again a criminal goes unpunished. Yeah, she should be in prison, not in the POTUS seat, right? And certainly not in but yet they, as my God love him, as my father-in-law says every Sunday morning when I have coffee with him, he might not be as sharp as he once was because of Alzheimer's, but every time, one thing he does know, God bless him. Every time her face appears on the TV, he looks at me and says, "She should be in jail. She should be in jail. She should be in prison. She should be in prison." God love him.
With that, let's take our top of the hour break. Ladies and gentlemen, hour number 2 of the Hagmann Hagmann Report on this 31st day of March 2015, a Tuesday. And as every Tuesday, we are live with the one and only Mr. Stan Deyo. His website is standeyo.com. Stan, welcome back to the show. I want to apologize for last week and the confusion and issues. Those were that was my fault, and I do apologize. But it's great to have you back on the show.
Oh, no problem, Joe. I figured there was a lot of things going on there that were creating technical problems, so that stuff happens, and we'll get on through it, eh?
Absolutely. Looking at your show images page, I see you have some interesting things up here, and want to kind of let you start out with whatever you have on your mind. What's been on Stan's radar? What you've been focusing on this week?
Well, this week and last week, certainly I've been looking at the change in the ice pack at the Antarctic. And, of course, today or yesterday by Arctic time, Antarctic time, the Antarctic pole had its hottest day on record, which, might only be for 200 or 300 years, something like that we've been keeping track of temperatures in the Antarctic. But still, I'm sure there's going to be a clamor for, stronger carbon emission taxes on the various nations and individuals eventually to stop global warming. I've already seen part of the articles coming up on the Google News today. Let's increase, the strengthening of the greenhouse gas reductions by various legislation. However, I don't think that's the most important thing facing the world today. My main focus has been on the Middle East, watching what's happening in Iraq and in Israel and in Yemen. All three of these areas are very important to what's about to erupt over there as a new war. Now, part of what the Obama administration released last week, I believe, wasn't it the week before, about the nuclear program in Israel was classified, back in the mid-'80s, but they released it now, or part of it anyway, to kind of embarrass the Israelis and as part of a threat to tell all that they know to the world should the Israelis pursue their intentions toward wiping out Iran's nuclear development. Now, from the report there and some other stuff we got, it is obvious that Israel has had nuclear facilities and developed nuclear weapons that are, at this point, in advance of what the United States has developed. One of the devices that the Israelis have apparently developed is a tactical hydrogen bomb, which is about 1,000 times the strength of a tactical nuclear atomic bomb. Now that dropped on the Iranian facilities, even if they're buried down deep, that's going to make a difference. It'll take them out. Now, I think what we're going to see here is already General Qasem Soleimani from Iran, who's been kind of at the forefront of the Iraqi attempts, the Shiites, to kick ISIS out of their country, IS, whatever they call it, the Islamic State. And they've taken new ground today in Tikrit. The middle photograph there is holding the banner is for the Iraqi troops under the direction of Soleimani, celebrating the fact that they've taken over half of Tikrit back now then from the IS and are making great strides toward defeating IS there. The prime minister, or the leader, I forget his title there, of Iraq, is now calling for Soleimani to go home because he suddenly realized that Soleimani's presence there is really a threat to the Iraqi independence such as it is, and that Iran is wanting to incorporate Iraq into a new Arab confederacy under the control of Iran. Same thing is happening down in Yemen. Soleimani's directing troops down there as well. And Soleimani has troops up on near the Golden Heights in the northeast of Israel, so close that he could just kind of sneeze and his troops would go right across into Israel. Now, the Middle East is suddenly, surprisingly, waking up to the fact that Iran is forming this new global superpower of Arab states in the Middle East. They're forming the Confederation, which has now Iran, Iraq, and soon Yemen, and perhaps Turkey and Egypt. I'm not sure which way they will go, or whether it will be only the Levant countries, like the Lebanon and Syria and Iran, Iraq, and Yemen. But I do see at least 5 members going into that Arab consortium that they're forming under the leadership of Iran. We're at a very tense turning point in the Middle East situation. We might see the price of oil absolutely skyrocket shortly if the Iranians' push is successful in Yemen, and if they take Iraq back. The Saudis are afraid of that too. That's why they're involved in trying to stop what's happening down in Yemen to keep Iran from getting a foothold there. It's interesting. They're fighting about control of the little narrow set of straits that go into the Red Sea from the Arabian Sea or from the Gulf of Aden. It's right next door to the story we talked about here last week, the week before, about the volcano at the city of Aden, where they've located a city inside of an extinct volcano there near the Straits. And that, of course, is where the local legends in Yemen say that Cain and Abel are buried, and in a volcano like the volcano that was the Garden of Eden. You might guess from that I've been digging in and researching for the book I'm writing on the Garden of Eden, but it is strategic ground there. They've really pushed that point that Cain and Abel were buried there, and they've got this connection straight to the Garden of Eden, right on up into Tanzania, I'm sure. Anyway, that's the main thrust of what I see in the news that's grabbing my attention is the climate changes there. Of course, the sun is doing its normal activity, where in the last 3 days it's had some real blowouts from the south. As you look at the picture, at about 7 or 8 o'clock in that direction off of the sun has been a huge flare, and one at the opposite side of the sun at about 2 o'clock. So the activity of the sun has not slowed down. It's being unstable. It's doing things that no one thought it would do in this low sunspot number cycle, especially in the downward slope of the second hump. That's playing into prophecy as it starts to exhibit this instability and throwing off material from the surface of the sun. Now, what have you guys been doing?
Looking at minus the Earth changes, looking at the same geopolitical issues as you, and it's interesting. We're seeing the convergence of Earth and the cosmic signs, as well as the geopolitics changing as well. You mentioned Iran, Iraq, and Yemen. What's going on in Yemen? We were talking about the choke points that any one. I mean, there are 3 main choke points for the transit of oil in this area. You've got the Suez Canal, the Strait of Hormuz, and of course the Yemen Strait there as well. And we're looking at all of this breakout of all of this war. Stan, people want to minimize this, or at least this is my view, and I'd like your take on this. People want to say, well, this is all Sunni versus Shia mentality and ideology, but I see a lot more behind this than this mere Sunni versus Shia. I mean, that to me is a very simplistic explanation to a very complex and heavily funded operation. I mean, what we're seeing here happening in Yemen and elsewhere, to me, is a culmination, or at least the fourth quarter plays of a longer game, and we're being gamed anyway. But this is all planned. This is not spontaneous. What do you think about that? I mean, is this not about oil, and is this, partially an energy in the future of that?
Oh, well, oil does play a very definite part of what the Illuminists are doing to the planet. But understand that the Illuminati, such as they are, the bankers, the industrialists who are trying to form this one world government, do not have complete control over the nations of the world that will be involved in this global consortium or global government that they want to form. Case in point is the Chinese. Even the prophecy in the book of Revelation by John say that the kings of the East, which would be China and allies, will march into the oil fields over there for the Battle of Armageddon at the end of the 7-year tribulation period. And the reason for that is that they are not really supporting the Illuminists, who are mainly Western world Illuminists and bankers and engineers. They want to see the people of the book, the Christians and the Jews, and they want to see the Muslims as well, all subjugated to Chinese rule. This is in keeping with the concepts taught to Genghis Khan by Sun Tzu, or like in Sun Tzu's Rules of War. the Straits of Bab el-Mandeb, which is outside Yemen there. The Straits there are one of the three choke points for oil flow, as you say. But we do have in the back room, they told me about this in the middle 70s when I was working with Teller's group. We have devices that will produce, quote unquote, free energy. And it's just very cheap and renewable type of electric energy without petroleum. But we can't change all the industry built up around automobiles and trucks and power generation stations and all that. You can't change those overnight just by saying, okay, I've got an alternate energy box that we can plug in. Small segments of the world population can use such a thing in a time of crisis, but we cannot supply this to the entire world all at once, and it cannot be released to the world until you have a global government that can tell people that they have to do it this way and that way to keep from collapsing the economy. It's going to be a very difficult transition time for the entire world. I'm afraid the United States is going to kind of fall way back into the background and will be severely damaged by what is coming, and soon, because Russia, even though Russia sees Obama as a weak operator, kind of not really a strength for the United States, he still, Putin still has to say, okay, in case the military overthrows Obama or there's an election where you get a strong right-wing or conservative leader in the White House that might use the nukes against Russia, we have to do something to neutralize America's ability to respond to Russian support of, say, Iran and Syria in the Middle East in what is coming as soon as Israel makes a strike. So that tells us that America has to go down, and we're seeing that right now. And there are rumors floating around again about when the global economic collapse is going to hit, and most of them all say between the next 3 and 6 months. Between July and September this year. Whether those rumors play out or not is another thing, but that's what's being circulated in the internet. Have you seen that yourself?
Yeah, we have.
Yeah.
And it's Stan, one thing I don't like to do, and I know you're averse to this as well, is to say, well, all signs point to September, and September rolls around and nothing happens, and people are saying, well, then nothing's going to happen, and people like to say things like, well, we've been through these kinds of troubles before, and we always make it, and it tends to give people, number one, a false sense of security, and number two, it tends to make us who say, well, it's going to happen in September, which we don't do, but we like you, we urge people to exercise extra insight and caution, and look toward the fourth quarter of this year, or the beginning of the fourth quarter, or the end of the third quarter is potentially a time period of trouble. We're not date setting, but we're saying, man, this could play out to be a time of trouble. But I guess, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was looking here at the news earlier on Iran, and Qasem Soleimani is their military genius. They have a photograph on what's called the Brock, BROCK Press.com. It's an article about the growing military force in Iran, and they show a picture of their army of young men, and some of these just look like babies with mustaches. They're just so young. But anyway, they do have their automatic machine guns there, and they're holding them with green flags stuck in the barrels. But the interesting point about what I saw in that photograph was that they're all wearing blue berets. Okay, not green berets, blue ones. You remember, what was it, as Nostradamus talking about the blue fez that the Antichrist of this age would wear? Is it possible then that the Antichrist will be at the head of the Iranian army wearing a blue cap, blue fez? Interesting thought.
Interesting observation too. I didn't pay any attention to that. Okay. Well, that makes it so that does bolster your. Well, it adds one more weight to the scale of Soleimani perhaps emerging as someone to really, really keep an eye on, as you have been pointing out. All right. And do you think he's going to gain more ground? I mean, is he a loose tiger in that area now? I mean, is he kind of on his own, or is he?
I'm sure he's still liaising with the Khomeini in Iran, and as he gains more power, certainly he gains more fame at home there in Iran. Now, he's got Yemen, he's got Syria, he's got Iraq, and then of course Iran. There's 4 of the 5 areas that might be coupled together, and the fact that Iran is so close, to Turkey and the eastern leg of the old Roman Empire, you can see where Iran is in a very good physical position and military position to form the eastern leg of the old Roman Empire, to reform it. And then the western leg needs a leader. And I'm still keeping my eye on this young Alexis Tsipras, the Greek prime minister. He's trying to negotiate some very clever financial changes for Greece to get out of the hole. But if Greece goes down, really hard, there are going to be a couple of other countries that will follow fairly shortly thereafter in Europe. And this kind of tells us that the demand for a new world economy is at the doorstep to stabilize the world economy after Greece and other countries default on various loans that they owe each other. All kind of a plan, as you've mentioned before, heading us in that direction, but also heading in the direction that we know will fulfill the prophecy of the 10 nations, and the false prophet, the second beast, will come out of probably the western side, and the Antichrist will come out of the eastern side. The 2 legs of iron and the 2 feet of iron and clay mix, representing the 10 nations, 5 and 5, in the dream of Nebuchadnezzar that Daniel interpreted for him. I was, as an aside, I was looking at Daniel the other night, and in the Cosmic Conspiracy book, the final edition of it, at the end I added an appendix about, the coming great deception and how the book of Daniel told us about the alien god that the Antichrist would honor in this time. And there was one little phrase in Daniel 11:36 that I had forgotten about, and I was watching a movie on the tube here yesterday, The Man of Steel, about Superman.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't remember who actually invented Superman. I'm sure we could find it on the internet, but Superman was called Kal-El, and I thought, Kal-El, that sounds familiar. And in the book of Daniel, there in that 11:36, right in the middle of it, it says, talking about the Antichrist, and he shall magnify himself above every god. Now in Hebrew, that's 3 words, 3 sets of words, 2 letters each, Al, Kal, El. So Kal-El is, Superman is being portrayed as a god in Hebrew, ancient Hebrew, but still Hebrew, to save mankind, be a good guy, and defeat the baddies. And I just thought it was interesting that so long ago that the creator of Superman had even used the Hebrew words from Daniel about this Superman coming to help the people of Earth from, of course, another planet, which is part of the whole deception that is being played out now. What do you think about that?
Well, my question is was that divinely inspired, an accident, or nefariously orchestrated? I mean,
I don't know. But I thought I'd share it out there. I mean, people may know more about the creator of Superman, comic books and whatever, and the character. But it just astounded me to realize that his name, Kal-El, was straight from the Hebrew Daniel, warning about the Antichrist coming that many years ago. And it, whether it was intentional or otherwise, it does fit like a glove.
Wow. that's, you never cease to amaze me with your historical knowledge and the things you pick up. Folks, we're talking as usual to Stan Deyo, StanDeyo.com, talking right now about the geopolitical events taking place in over in the Middle East, including Yemen.
Let me get a listener question from Steve, and he asked this, Stan, have you heard any updates on Fukushima, the radiation that's been released, or any contamination claims coming from TEMCO, Fukushima, or any other sources?
I haven't. I've received some emails, updates from various people that I couldn't verify about the amount of various radioactive elements that are dropping on the United States from that. But in the end, I take those things and I pile them over into I'll look at it someday type, bucket in my email, because there's just so many conflicting reports, and it's so hard to verify that I hate to mislead people by saying, I got an email today and it says it's happening, it's destroying our milk and our kids and whatever, without proof. And so it is definitely something of interest. But if it's true, we can't stop it. It's going to drop on us. So if it hasn't already, into our food chain. So, just decide in yourself if that happens, what you're going to do.
We had a question, and I'm not sure if this was posed to you in the weeks past or not, but and I've had a couple of questions from listeners about this since. Why didn't the nations, or at least Japan, why didn't they just bury? I did ask you this last week. Why not just bury it in concrete? But I think you answered that by saying, well, perhaps ability for access, or if it already burnt, I'm not sure your word, but went through the floor of the ocean, they couldn't do it. I think that's what you said. But several emails asking that same question, or varieties thereof, wanting to know why there was not something more proactive done with Fukushima.
It may have been because they were caught between the rock and the hard place, because if you do nothing, what it's going to do is just melt down, go through the floor and go through the substrata and hit underground water sources, and some of those leach straight out into the ocean, which would present a real problem, a bigger problem. Certainly already farmers in the area, in their water and the airborne particulates, have suffered. At first I thought, like most people, look, why don't you just go over there and either throw concrete over it or sneak up underneath it, tunnel underneath it, and release a low-yield nuclear bomb to open up a cavity underneath it and seal it in glass, down underneath the strata. But that just, there are so many other problems, including the water tables that were around there, that it couldn't be risked. So I guess it's, as I said, between a rock and a hard place, what you do. So you try to mitigate the damage to the culture there and to cultures across the Pacific that would be affected by the airborne and waterborne and living animal-borne particulates that are radioactive. At this point, I don't know that I'd believe anything that any government published on it. It's just they're trying to cover their backsides.
Well, in the scheme of things, I guess, how would you rate the concern? How would you rate Fukushima? The with everything going on here, if you had to triage the headlines and triage the events that have taken place over the last half a dozen years and taking place currently, triaging the events, assigning priority of interest to or importance and interest, what would they be? Where would Fukushima fall? Would it fall midway between the geopolitics and the?
I'd put it probably halfway in my concern, because of the fact that it's an ongoing long-term event. And the clear and present dangers of the Middle East are, up there at number one, because there are a lot more nuclear devices involved in what may be happening there shortly than Fukushima. So you got to prioritize it and say, okay, well, look, we can't really deal with that issue. At the moment, we've got to get prepared for what's happening that might be, nuclear bombs over the United States as well, from, Russia, China, and even, other countries that have nuclear weapons. But in the Middle East, if you believe what the Hopi have said, that there are going to be three types of countries invading the United States and actually just bringing us down: the Chinese, the Russians, and they didn't specify, but from the Middle East, some other powers over there, and I assume it would be some kind of Arab Islamic group coming with the Russians. And that tells you, of course, that Iran would probably be involved in that.
It's interesting because that kind of segues into a question from Kelly from Macon, Georgia, listening live, wanting to know your thoughts on a takeover by outside forces. What you think geopolitically, seeing everything taking place right now, the chances are of a takeover by outside forces of the United States. This from Kelly from Macon, Georgia, listening live.
Well, Kelly, I personally, I think we're in big trouble, and as I've said many times, we have to be taken down as a world power by the Russians and the Chinese, so that other activities that they want to do in the oil fields can be done without the fear of the United States being at their heels or coming down on them with our own nuclear supplies. And even though our current government is appearing so weak and so sympathetic to the Arab nations, to the Islamic Arab nations, even though that's happening, the Russians and the Chinese both know that they can't depend on that to keep America out of being involved, because we have such a high percentage of Christians, evangelical Christians in this country, that are pressing to overthrow a lot of the legislation that the Obama administration has put upon the American people. Now, they also realize that if it gets too bad over here, that our military and other groups might physically, rise up and overthrow our government. Now, that would certainly put our house in chaos, and there would be martial law as a result of it, but it still might enable our military to strike with nuclear weapons, to strike Russia, China, and any other Arab country involved in, say, going after the United States and Israel. So, yeah, I mean, we're close. We're very close. We've got to go down almost before the rest of the action occurs over there.
Wow. The somber tone that I detect here, it does drive home the point that, we're seeing things happen today that, and we haven't seen in the past. I remember watching in 1979 the first in February 1979 when Khomeini came back to Iran, and then the hostage crisis in November. And I remember thinking, my goodness, we're at the precipice of something major. And the failed rescue attempt in 1980. But now this is like totally different, and everything's just out of control.
Yeah.
It's just wow.
It is, and it's getting worse. I mean, I talk to a number of people that I deal with, and go to the store or to the post office, young workers and people I see regularly, and they all know what Holly and I have talked about and what she's written about, and I'm there to prepare, and what I've written about, the Cosby Conspiracy, and we've known them now like for years on a casual basis, and of late, I'm bumping into them. They're saying, look, we've started putting some food aside. I think you're right. Things are about to happen. And, of course, the thought that runs across my mind, I don't say it, is, where have you been? I mean, and do you think we ought to buy silver? And I'm thinking, oh, dear, where have you been?
What should I do with my 401k? Sorry.
Dear. Yeah. What was that again? 401k, yeah. While I was researching various things in the Middle East last week, I ran across a piece of information that hasn't been widely touted. In Israel, there is a city called Ariel, Ariel, I think, Ariel, and it's what they call a smart city. And it was kind of a little rundown, small, town. I forget, maybe 10, 12 years back. Anyway, they've turned it into a town that is like all electronic, digital, cameras, scanners and that kind of stuff, and water consumption, smart meters on the homes and things like that to monitor everything and feed it into a central facility there as a test case to see how it could be done where these smart meters, some of the ones they're testing, they can tell if you're burning energy efficient light bulbs in your house or if you're burning the old filament type. And so they can tell that with these smart meters. I mean, they know that you're not burning the economic bulbs, and they can penalize you for that. To me, that seems somewhat invasive, but still, that's what they're doing. And they're analyzing all kinds of people consumption patterns and stuff like that into their computers they've got. They've given, well, in fact, this is all over Israel. The Netanyahu's administration have made sure that every teacher has got a laptop computer so that they can teach children digitally and get them all educated at an early stage. I forget how many thousands or tens of thousands of computers they put out like that, but they are doing that as an experiment in Israel, moving toward a cashless society like everyone else. Now, if you look at what Israeli technology has done in the past, they're so far ahead of the rest of the world. The Technion Institute and various other institutes there that do scientific development research. I suspect that they will be at the forefront in developing the technology that we will need to have a global numbering system. Now, whether they'll get to keep control over it or not is another thing, but this is where they're headed when they make these smart cities. And, even Netanyahu has said, we've got to move toward a cashless society here in Israel. So he's already just openly saying we'll have to do that. Other countries will be doing the same thing if they haven't already. They're getting ready. They're laying the groundwork out of necessity for what the world leader, probably the second beast, will set up as a global economic system. So without realizing it, they're playing into the hands of what's coming.
Man, wow.
I mean, it makes sense.
It does.
It's hard to argue. It's hard to argue against getting rid of cash and checks and things like that can be used by crime syndicates to sell drugs and distribute drugs and to blackmail people and to make illegal income and that kind of stuff. It's hard to argue that we need a better system that will stop the crime and the fraud. But on the other hand, it's who's in control of that that's a big weak link in that.
Well, it seems like, there are good ideas. I mean, in a perfect world where morality reigns and a fear and a worship of the one true God would exist, then, things would, of course, it would be good to have these controls in place. However, obviously these will be used for nefarious purposes and subjugate us to a system that we can't run. I mean, I just, every day I think of losing our anonymity to a cashless society, to a digital currency, where every transaction is monitored, where you couldn't take $5 and go down to the store and buy whatever. It's you have to take your card, and you couldn't work outside the system, or you could not trade outside the system. And I can see where this. How long after an economic collapse do you think that this would be in place? Could it be done? I'll ask you, could it be done in short order, or would it take some doing to really get everybody on the same? I don't know.
It'll be weeks, maybe months, because people have to be chipped, ID'd. But in the meantime, what will happen is the banks will control the flow of the currency you're using, limited like they did in Greece to so many $100 or whatever shekels or drachmas or whatever that you're allowed to take out of your bank account. I mean, you might have 1 million thingos in your bank account, but you might only be able to get 300 of them a week out while they transition to the new system.
What about the people that have a mattress full of cash or whatever, banknotes, whatever the currency?
It's not going to be worth much. No, I mean, when the collapse occurs within a few days or weeks, like a week or two, certainly the cash will be of some value because there will be people that don't understand what's coming next, and with that cash, people will say, "Look, I'll give you my car for $200 because I need the cash." And they'll give you goods or services in excess of what they would normally be worth in that short period of time just to get cash to pay bills or, keep themselves out of trouble because their bank won't let them have it. But that's going to be a short-lived period, and then it will go to the digital system, and there'll probably be an edict to come out that said, look, people who are hoarding cash and using cash to buy things from you, they are on our suspect list, probably criminals. And so it's going to frighten people into not using the cash they've got hidden under the mattress, or silver or gold, that kind of stuff. So it'll be an underground kind of black market, cash, gold, silver, when the transition occurs. And as it's occurring over weeks or a couple months or whatever, there will be this push to identify to the local governments or to the federal government who is trying to use silver, gold, or currency to buy goods and services, who's not playing by the game, because these people must be criminals. And that's going to get a lot of us. So I'm telling you, the stuff we're putting away is only going to be useful for a short period of time. And after that, and during that, the food and resources you've put away, in your basement or wherever you store your food and medicines and weapons or whatever, that stuff will be hit next. They'll say, if you know of anybody that's hoarding food and this kind of stuff, let us know who they are, and we'll give you 10% of it or some percentage of it as your reward. I mean, it's going to turn neighbor on neighbor. So it's only going to be a short time bridge.
All right, and this, again, another nice segue here. Christina, listening live from Austin, Texas, wants to know your opinion of Jade Helm domestically, the Operation Jade Helm 2015 or Jade Helm 15. If this is, what your thoughts are in general. I mean, it's a paragraph question, but a question the length of a paragraph. But basically, what your thoughts on Jade Helm are? Is this a prep thing, or what do you think?
Well, look, Holly dug into this today because we both got about 12 emails from various sources saying, "Oh, Jade Helm, look out." And Holly has friends who are, military, special forces type individuals who would be very close to this, and they're kind of smiling and saying, "Look, all this hysteria about it is really unjustified. This is a training mission or training series of missions because look at the land that on the continent of the United States are using for these maneuvers. They are not densely populated areas. There will be some activity where they try to infiltrate cities as civilians and try to do various things without being detected by the civilian populace. But this is to train them for operations over in the Middle East in dry desert, inhospitable terrain like we've got here. And this deal about, if you look at the countries or the states that they're doing it in, it's certainly a lot of it's in what was in Aztlan, where the Mexican nationals support the retaking of territory that the United States legally purchased from Mexico in 1848 and 58. In fact, Holly's got an article about it on our website at standdeyo.com. If you look in the news in 2007 under the immigration, there will be a picture there in January the 11th, U.S. land purchases. You can search for that. I don't know where it is exactly, but and it shows you a graphic, of the area that was Aztlan. And at this point, I mean, we're seeing already where we are here in Colorado, we're seeing more military helicopters going overhead and low down to the ground. And, I don't see this as a method of training the guys to come get us at this point. And I certainly don't think it's going to do anything evil or wicked to us at this point. We have to train these people to do that in other countries, and I suppose some of these guys could later be used in martial law, and it gives them experience of how to deal with civilians in this country as well as other countries. What really frosts me is that the Russians know this and everybody else. I mean, they come over and participate in it.
Yeah, really. Okay, that surprised me. I mean, to see there's a picture. I think it was from Connecticut and one from Broward County, Florida, where not Jade Helm, of course, which hasn't started yet, but some subset perhaps of that military operation. But seeing what appear to be foreign troops, perhaps, and I use that question mark because the caption on the photograph is foreign troops, but how can you tell? Okay, I mean, they don't have a name tag that says Igor, okay, or something, but or Ivan, from Russia. What about using foreign troops for domestic operations like this? I mean, what are we thinking?
Well, it means if you do train them, that as you and I have discussed before, if you train foreign troops, they will, 99.9% of the time have no connections, no family that could influence their ability to follow what they're directed to do in the civilian populace here. So that if they're used to come in and retrieve, hoarded materials or guns or round up people, they're not going to be swayed by, that's Aunt Martha's boy, I better not do that, we'll let them go, because they'll have no connection to it. They have a very dispassionate look at doing what they're supposed to round us up and to round up our things. From a conspiratorial type point of view, that makes sense. As far as these pictures we've been seeing down in Florida and various other places of troops rounding up civilians, making them put their hands over their head, down in Florida it might well be that was like National Guard, you don't know, rounding up drug smugglers or illegal aliens, but you can't tell from the videos and stuff. But I wouldn't put it past the government to have already trained foreign troops, since we know they've been here training for years, and possibly some of our own troops, but they would not let us have like sheriff's departments and police departments and stuff like that, and possibly not even National Guard involved in this because of family and friendship relations that would screw up the whole plan. So as I see it, what will happen is they will disempower sheriff departments, police departments, and take over their role in the community with foreign nationals, whatever we call them, whether they're troops or policemen or what. But they can't afford to let the community exercise its influence on the serving members of our police and sheriff's departments, and possibly National Guard, because they know them, and it would infringe on their ability to do their job properly as far as enslaving us.
That makes sense.
Hard. Yeah. Obviously, foreign troops would be much easier to go, would be easier to train and much more willing to go along with the confiscation of a foreign nation's people and or land than it would be for the American military and branches of it to go after their own land that they're sworn to protect and uphold the laws of this land. And, that's why we see, I think, the purging of certain military personnel from different branches of our military that the president has done, from the Navy to special operations. It's been across the board, and this could be a reason why. We got another question from a listener, Stan, and they want if you could get into the latest figures, calculations, or information on the drought in California and how this is being really not talked about in the media, but it's continuing to get worse and worse as time moves on.
Well, Joe, I mean, I'm kind of I'm kind of at the same advantage as everyone else that can have access to the internet and news there. You can get some news on U.S. events that aren't being covered in the U.S. media by looking at United Kingdom or European news agencies that will tell the truth about various events. But as far as the drought, they're already using so much water that it's going to take hundreds of years to replenish the aquifers. And one of the things that concerns me about this, in addition to the actual drought increasing, is the water that they are going to be able to get will probably start to become polluted. They're drawing heavily on aquifer water, and they've been also depending in California on water coming down the Colorado River because they have an agreement with Colorado to use that. But even that's not enough, because we're seeing the drought over here as well. The lightning, the water being consumed, is making the overburden of land over the fault lines there less heavy. It's being lightened. And that's another thing that bothers me, in that these spaces in the rock formations that are empty spaces where the water is no longer there are now not as strong, and are more likely to break in a quake or something.
Interesting.
Holly's telling me it'll take 11 trillion gallons of water to get California out of its current situation with the drought, and that's not going to happen overnight. And with the global trend being toward very disparate distribution of rainfall, extremes of flooding and rain in certain places, extremes of no rain and drought in others, with this developing like that, I don't see a hope for California. I suspect that we'll probably see people leaving California soon and just leaving their property and going to where there is rain and food and work. It's just going to get so bad. And look, if you and I were in charge of government, we play this game often, Doug, when we talk offline. What would we do if we were in control of the United States? And would we, in good common sense, come out officially and say to the residents of California, oh, look, you guys are in such a lot of trouble, and the earthquakes are about to happen, and you're being droughted to death, and you've got illegal immigrants and taking over jobs, and, well, look, you better move east and get out of there, because it's just going to collapse in a heap over there. You wouldn't do it because that would hit real estate values so hard, and business and all kinds of things, and create anarchy on the West Coast and east of there as they start to migrate. But if you let people know, like you and I are talking, in the underground kind of, rumor news market, the wise will start moving, if they haven't already, and getting themselves prepared. And certainly, you should be prepared. You should put away stockpiles of what you need, but just don't tell anybody where it is or that you've got it. Just be quiet about it.
Stan, that's interesting you say that, because yesterday we started off the program by talking about two Naval College documents, or two documents that address this infiltration of what the government would call subversive political movements, the patriot groups, and how they're infiltrating these groups, or at least the documents address, Iraq, Afghanistan, other countries, but they're in use here in this country. And you're right. I mean, our biggest threat, to me, anyway, looking at this, our biggest threat would come from someone that we'd least expect, our brother-in-law with a big mouth, or a neighbor. When the going gets tough, who's going to sell us out first?
I know. And if you have no protection, for you and your family, you just about kind of bend over and kiss it goodbye, But that's why we advocate, making friends with people that are further out in the country, or, making drops of your supplies in places that are perhaps part of a national forest or reserve that no one sees you doing it, and so you've got at least that you can run to if you need to.
Right.
It's good sense. I mean, military special forces guys have been taught this a long time ago. But if you have no defense, then you have no excuse.
You're exactly right. I have a listener who said this is a real Stan Deyo question. Okay, so I love it.
Okay.
As if the others weren't. I don't know. Anyway, did you hear about this? A high-ranking Russian scientist recommending that they nuke the San Andreas Fault and the super volcano in Yellowstone. Did you see an article about that? I think there's a reference to an article being on InfoWars, I think, on one of these. And
well, the way I got the story, I have heard it was that there was a terrorist. Now, he may have been a Russian terrorist, but there are terrorists here that they've apprehended that had been planning to nuke both the San Andreas and the Yellowstone Park. But then he realized that it would take a lot more nuke stuff than he could get his hands on to trigger those two things, and the logistics of getting it to the target without being detected was just too hard. I mean, he told the FBI and Homeland Security after they captured him. And I'm not too concerned about them doing that unless there's an all-out war and China or somebody drops nukes onto the fault lines at strategic places. That might trigger it. But Yellowstone is going to take a lot more than that to cause that to erupt ahead of schedule. A lot more.
Okay. Well, you're the man. A lot more. I guess you would mean like on a nation-state level more, as opposed to a terrorist. Yeah. Okay. And do they have? And I was looking at this too. We've got space. I mean, there are space weapons exist, right? Or weapons that can be used from space to, create various
satellite-based weapons, space-based weapons. Yeah. We've heard with the, I think it was M8, M17, the flight that went down in Ukraine, that it was at such an altitude that it could not be fired from a rocket. A shoulder-to-air missile could not fire it down, and there's been talk that space-based weaponry, it was possible that could have brought that down. Or even, does the space-based weaponry exist at that level?
Oh, it does. It does. We have a number of things out there that have been put up in orbit and are still being put up in orbit and maintained for observing. There's a recon facility that's been very secret until of late in the United States. I forget the exact name of it, but it's like the National Recon Service or something, and they didn't want to make that public because they could look at things in a lot greater detail close up from 22,000 miles out than we can. With aircraft or things like that. I mean, they could do much more than read newspaper print. They could get down and look at, tiny little letters and stuff. What makes up the letter. I mean, and they can scan and do scan and infrared and various other frequencies to get through cloud cover and storms and things like that. As I say, I can't remember the full, the proper name of the reconnaissance group, but it's something reconnaissance, space reconnaissance, signals intelligence or something. Anyway, with them, they have done experiments with microwave to transmit power down to the surface, to be able to collect energy up there or make it nuclear-wise and beam it as a microwave beam to receiver power net and power neighborhoods and stuff with stationary satellites. By the same token, with that kind of a microwave system, you could target somebody's aircraft and fry it and everything on board. Lasers, okay, you couldn't just use a laser by itself. You'd have to use a electric plasma around a laser beam, and they aren't as accurate and easy to direct as, say, a microwave beam would be. But whatever method, I'm sure we do have the facilities out there to direct that kind of destruction to aircraft and to missiles that are launched, and so do the Russians and the Chinese, I'm sure. They can do that. I've been suspicious of a number of things. You're looking at directed energy weapons, is what you're talking about, but you can also have like a global field set up, which takes moving things at certain altitudes and shorts out their electronics if you power it up. And we've talked about this last year on your show, where that meteor came in over Russia and exploded. It did so, I think, because it was hit by going through a field that had been set up in Europe by the United States at a base they're setting up there at an old abandoned Air Force base.
All right. So what you're saying, thanks to this defensive shield, if you will, the meteor at Chernobylsk, I guess it's called that, was decimated or destroyed or, lessened the damage from that. Interesting. Okay, go ahead.
It's the National Reconnaissance Office. I just found it in my notes here. Anyway, look up National Reconnaissance Office and see what they've been doing and what they're willing to release to the public now, and realize that a lot more goes on than you'd ever suspect.
Wow. All right.
National Reconnaissance Office.
National Reconnaissance Office. All right. Wow. All right. Joe, did you check the studio? Just make sure we.
Yeah, doing that now here.
I just want to make sure we covered everyone's questions. I got a question, Stan. This came up. I had a neighbor who's in business. It was weird, long story, but the ultimate question was this, and this might sound like a very trivial question to you, but if you think it through, if people think it through, they'll understand the importance of it. Looking to buy a television set for his business, and he runs a business where it's a kind of a cash business. Anyway, the smart technology that's embedded in today's televisions and other appliances, can you work around that? I mean, is there a workaround, or can you still buy outside of the old heavy, tube televisions? Is there a workaround? Go ahead.
Well, if you buy the old tube TVs, they're good for sending video signals into them, right? Not airborne reception, but cable, linked to a video player or something, because they are running on what's called analog signals as opposed to digital signals. And most of the new TVs now are digital. That's why they can be so lightweight, and you can run the LCDs, or the screens are run with electrons, flipping status states of little cells there, versus an electron beam, which takes a big heavy tube. As far as deactivating those, it would depend on the manufacturer and which ones do and do not put feedback monitoring in their screens. I don't know. I don't do anything in front of my TV screen, but.
Well, yeah, and that was kind of in conversation. I was thinking, I did say, well, I found myself saying, well, what are you trying to get away from? But that's not even the point. The point is the fact that these have the ability to look in on you or to monitor you. I guess really there's no getting away from any of this, is there? This surveillance, this invasive surveillance that we've got, television.
There are all sorts of invasive surveillance. Some are passive and some are active. Now, I call an active one a TV camera in your TV set, or that's monitoring. That'd be an active one. A passive one might be okay. A digital money system, a cashless society. How is that invasive? Well, it records every transaction you make, whether you're receiving money or spending it, and your spending habits, as we can see, say, like on the internet now with Google and with Amazon. Let's say you look at, I like cotton candy. You're suddenly going to be deluged in the next few weeks with cotton candy ads and things that go with cotton candy from all sorts of manufacturers that you never even looked at. If they're analyzing already your buying patterns, you specifically, because you have to log in with that name, on Google or Amazon or eBay. So they're already doing this. But when we go to a cashless society, they will know if you're buying aspirins, Vicodin, seeing a doctor over this or that. They will know if you're very partial to one of your kids, you're giving one up more money than the other one. It's a lever. It's a way that they can exercise their knowledge of your personal behavior from the economics of your existence. And that's very invasive. And certainly in that kind of society, if the powers that be say, Doug, we don't like what you're doing on your radio show. We're going to limit you to $200 a month worth of spending. Okay, we'll just limit your account, or we'll cut you off completely if you don't comply, and you'll have no money because you'll have no digital footprint. And that's invasive, but it's kind of passive at this point. It's just a threat. And they have to actually analyze it. You have to come on the radar to be important enough to be analyzed. But again, I can see advantages of this. If Jesus were in charge of this global digital system, he would know how to use it properly and would be fair. I'm not against a global government or a global economy as long as the person in charge is Jesus Christ. I trust him.
There you go.
And that's it.
That's exactly correct. And it's amazing to me the battle that is to me that whether we talk about Yemen or it doesn't matter. Everything that we're seeing, domestic surveillance to global chaos, it's all being influenced and directed by it all comes down to, I shouldn't say being influenced, directed by, but it's good versus evil at its root, and it's and we know we're already fighting from a position of victory. We know who wins. But boy, I'll tell you, evil certainly is pervasive in this system that we have developed, and I don't know. Stan, that just, God, I just find myself just shaking my head.
Millennial age, when Jesus is ruling from Jerusalem, or from Israel there, he is going to withhold rain from countries that don't follow the rules and don't make their pilgrimage as they're supposed to say hi and visit with him over there. He will influence the world in that way. He will say, I'll give you rain or I'll withhold the rain. That's the way they say it. If you don't, follow the rules. And so he's not going to be a lightweight leader, but by the same token, he will be a fair leader. And, to me, that's, you got to have somebody that will defend you and be strong, but be fair.
Kind of like a father, a just father would be.
Yep, absolutely.
Amen. Wow. Stan, is there anything that we missed? This is great. This is kind of like, kicking back, sitting at the table, just talking about things that are really of importance. That and it's and folks, please visit standeyo.com and Holly's book, Dare to Prepare. I've got a lot of people wanting Holly to come on and talk about tweaking their preps. Just as an FYI, and so the invitation's open for that. And of course, The Cosmic Conspiracy, the final edition, written by Stan Deyo. But is there anything we haven't covered? Oh, go ahead.
Oh, probably, but we can do that next week. Holly's working on another project that's taking a lot of her time at the moment, and I'll talk to her about speaking to you guys. But I don't hold high hopes because she's absolutely getting up again at like 4:30 and starting to work on this, and it's for the benefit of a lot of people, but we're just not talking about it a lot at the moment.
I fully understand it. Man, I'll tell you, for you guys work harder than any people I know. I mean, I know watching your site, the headlines go up on your site. My time, it's early, so I know your time is really, really early. And Holly does that. So, and the dedication there, the canvassing, God bless her for that. And of course, everything you do, man, it's just incredible. So, and everything you've done. And, I hope we have the opportunity to meet here in the near term. Love to be able to see you and Holly, meet in person. are you going to Colorado Springs? I mean, I guess doing this on air is probably not the right thing to do, but sorry about that.
Yeah, no, we'll talk about that off air if you want. Because I really don't know what's happening there.
Yeah, I don't either, actually.
I got a call today that I got a return from Sam over there. So we'll find out more. We'll talk off air about that.
Sorry about that. What am I thinking? Hey, we're on air. I forgot we were on air just about, But anyway,
it's too relaxed.
So sometimes you just have to kind of dial down a little bit, don't you? I mean, all this is pretty heavy stuff we're talking about, and I don't know.
Well, it is heavy, but we're getting close to the moment where people need to be, paying attention.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, God bless you, man. God bless you for your time.
God bless you guys. You do a great job.
We're going to ask our listeners to keep you guys in their prayers.
Yes.
And we thank you for your gift of time every week, and we thank you for the sacrifices you make and all the great work you put out and the insight that you add to this show. It is
fun, but we just delight in having you every Tuesday. The real Indiana Jones, and just thank you. God bless you, my friend.
All right, guys. Well, we'll talk to you later on, okay?
All right, buddy. Thanks, man.
Have a good night, Stan. With that, we're going
to
go to the top of the hour break. We're going to come back with your phone calls at 661-244-9839. That's 661-244-9839. We'll have about 45 minutes left when we come back, so we're going to try and keep calls to a minimum.
Keep them flowing.
If we can.
March 2015, I'm Doug Hagmann with Joe Hagmann, and we're going to be taking your phone calls throughout the remainder of the program. Attempt, if you can, just to be succinct, quick, and we'd like to get as many calls in as possible. By the way, the commercial that you heard, or the sound clip, I shouldn't say commercial, the sound clip that you heard is the informational book about, or it's about the book by Bill Salas, who will be a guest on our program on the 13th of this next month, I should say, April. And Bill's been traveling like everywhere. I mean, covering the United States and conferences. So it's going to be really a distinct pleasure to have him on.
Nuclear Showdown, Prophecy of Elam is the name of the book. It'll be on the 13th.
And we got a copy of that at Orlando, and I got to tell you,
we got a copy of that book actually. I'd say 6 months to a year ago, but the DVD is what was new that we got recently.
That's right. I misspoke on that. Yeah, and also don't forget Paul McGuire, his book Mass Awakening. Actually, that's coming out, or it's. I can't wait to get my copy, and hopefully, it's soon to be, or should have been at the printers last week. But that'll be coming very soon. So anyway, so we're going to go right to the phones. Oh, by the way, if you haven't tasted honesttogoodnesstoffee.com, that's honesttogoodnesstoffee.com. If you go to hagmanhagmann.com, click on the link. If you haven't tasted that toffee, it's a delicacy. It's really it's a specialized product. It's not something you get at your grocery store or your.
No, not at all.
And the slabs that you get, you can break it up and put it on your own plating service. And I got to tell you, you will not be sorry. You'll get more compliments and you'll know what to do with.
And for those of you who might not have access to the website and want to order this in time, to order, call Jeannie at 949-702-7191. That's 949-702-7191. Or go to www.honesttogoodnesstoffee.com or go to hagmanandhagmann.com and find the link from there.
Yep. Middle row there, you'll see the nice thing of toffee. So.
And if you want to know how good it is, I can have my wife on the air in about 30 seconds, and if her mouth isn't full of toffee, she can explain it to you how good it is, because every time we get some, it seems to disappear, and she is the one I find the crumbs and wrappers lying around. So, no, she loves that stuff, and we do love it. It's very good. And just on this last side note with the toffee, everybody might think, it's unhealthy. It's lots of chocolate. It actually has lots of protein in it for it being a delicacy such as the toffee. So check it out if you haven't yet. You can order as little or as much as you want, but it's I would definitely urge everybody to try it. So with that, let's go to the phones. We're going to go to area code 309 first. 309, thanks for calling. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report on this last day of March. Go ahead.
Hi there, Doug and Joe. How are you doing tonight?
Very well. What's up?
Yeah, I'd like to start a prayer chain. My old pastor, Shelley Cunningham, is sick with cancer, and it's going through her bloodstream. And I pray that Jesus heals her in Jesus' name.
Amen.
Shelley Cunningham?
Yeah.
What's her? Okay. And from Illinois, is that where you're calling from?
Yeah, I'm from Illinois. Yeah, and they moved to. Well, they were in Missouri. I think they're still in Missouri. They moved to Joplin, Missouri, because they were pastors at the Salvation Army, where I used to work and go to church at, and they were my old bosses too. And then they moved to Joplin, Missouri, and bought a place over there, and they were pastors over there for a while.
Okay, and one more time, her name again that needs the prayers?
Shelley Cunningham.
Shelley Cunningham, okay. And in fact, folks, don't discount the power of prayer collectively and individually and collectively. Don't discount that. It's indeed. So we will lift Shelley Cunningham up in prayer for her full recovery and restoration of her body. And God bless you, my friend. It's good to have a friend like
Thank you. God bless you.
Yeah. All right, buddy. Thanks.
Have a great night.
Yeah. Shelley Cunningham, lift her up in prayer because one of our sisters in crisis is in need.
We're going to go to our question mark line, our unavailable line. It's all ones. So if you hear the beep,
you're up.
You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Go ahead, mystery caller. You're up. If you can hear us, if you can hear this.
Area code 111. 111? Going once?
Now we're going to have to put you back on hold then.
All right, let's go to 516 next. 516, we're coming to you. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Hey, Joe and Doug, it's Dave from Long Island.
Long Island. All right.
Yeah, unfortunately, Doug, I'm still here in New York with Governor Cuomo. I can't believe this guy is going to probably receive Holy Communion this Easter. And what he just came out against Indiana, I think that's the governor of Indiana, Pence.
Right, Mike Pence.
I just can't believe. Huh?
Yeah, Mike Pence of Indiana, who...
Cuomo stopped all non-essential interstate travel to Indiana in a boycott of the...
Well, I thought it was a Connecticut governor that did that.
Well, so did Cuomo.
Cuomo, too? They're morons. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't know how else to describe it. Yeah. Look.
I wanted to go with a girl I was going when I was in fornication. And I wanted to go to Dutch, Pennsylvania Dutch or whatever. The Amish. And she said, call up, and I wanted to make a reservation on the motel. She goes, The lady in the motel goes, are you married? I said, no. She goes, I'm sorry, but you can't stay at our motel because you're not married. I didn't make a big stink about it. She was telling the truth. It was wrong what I was going to do, but I respected her. I didn't go to court and take them all this and that. But I don't want to get off there. I know you want to do as much time, as fast as I can. But Joe, being that it's Easter, and I'm going to be going, to hopefully to church, and this is the time of, the Passion of Christ. And I think it was 2 years ago, Joe, and I never mentioned this in all the time that I called, but I'm reading from the teleprompter here. I never told you what pleasure I had when you said you watched the Passion of the Christ, and said anyone who could watch that and be not brought to a tear or many. I don't want to misquote you, but you said something like that. And I would suggest to everyone, watch it this week or whenever and see how much Jesus loved you. For all of us, even you Muslims, I just want to say that. And when you envelop yourself in that picture and you see how much suffering he endured for all of us, it's a lot easier I feel, to go through what we're going through now, being persecuted, many of us are, and the coming persecution against us. That's number one. The next thing I want to say real quick is O'Reilly. When I saw O'Reilly's Killing Jesus advertisement and looked at Jesus, I was amazed at his eyes and face. His eyes and expression just didn't seem right. They were like dark eyes. And it just, I didn't know anything about it. But then I found out he was an actor who was a Muslim. And I was just blown away. And I would never go see the picture. It's unbelievable that O'Reilly would do such a thing. Put a Muslim play Jesus, and he just didn't have the expressions of the old Jesus that I had seen in other films. And that would be, I'm going to make a movie myself. I'm making a movie, and I'm going to have Netanyahu play Mohammed. That's the same thing almost. Okay.
We'll convoluted, but okay, I get you. Yeah, I know, I understand what you mean. But
imagine them reacting to Netanyahu playing Mohammed.
Well,
they'd be rioting in the streets over there. Okay?
And hence
then
the
other
difference. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry. And real quick, I want to say to all the parents of the veterans deceased in VA hospitals, all the veterans out there, their families, just know that you are all loved, and you will see your family in heaven one day. Those guys and gals that laid down their lives, Matt Tillman, all of those guys, all the SEALs that were slain, killed, probably on purpose. Don't worry. You'll see your sons in heaven, I guarantee you, and you will have a joy that will be, you can't imagine the joy that you will have when you see them in heaven. Hopefully we all get there. And they can't take this away. They have no idea. The eye has not seen and ear has not heard. We have to just keep that in, no matter what comes. I mean, there was that Christian that was, his head was taken off a couple of days ago, and I heard, I couldn't get it on my, they probably blocked it, but I couldn't get Waleed Shubat, and he did a thing. It was said that he converted from Islam to Christianity, and the two guys were behind him, and he went, according to what I had read, he was in utmost peace, and I do believe that the Holy Spirit will come upon us like St. Stephen was martyred, I believe, at the fire or stake or something like that. The Holy Spirit will come upon us and give us that feeling of joy, and I think the pain of the death will be less. And I just want to give a shout-out to all the veterans that might be contemplating suicide. Please, again, I must say this, please, my brothers, my sisters, whoever you are that might be contemplating suicide, your cross is heavy, but so is the Lord's cross. You are so close. The more you suffer, the more that cross is laid upon you, the more closer you are to your Lord. Just hang in there, and I tell you, you will be in heaven one day. We all will be. Those that the Lord knows what kind of cross to give you, and He has given you a heavy cross. Just bear with it. You have no idea how close you are. And I just say it again. Watch The Passion of the Christ. And the last thing I want to say is a little prayer. Glory be to the Father, our Creator. And we all pray to the same God. The Muslims and the Christians, we all do pray to the same God. So all you Muslims and Christians, let's get down and we could say, glory be to the Father and to the Son.
No, I got to stop you right there, man. We do not all pray to the same God. We
I'm being sarcastic, Doug. I know.
Okay.
I'm being a little sarcastic there. They say we pray to the same God. So I'm saying we pray to our God. So I guess the Muslims are praying to. I'm being sarcastic, but glory be to the Father and to the Son and to the Holy Spirit. And then just remember this, I say this, O blood and water, which gushed forth from the heart of Jesus, as a fountain of mercy for us. I trust in you. So I thank you much, my brothers and sisters.
Thanks, Dave.
And everybody out there.
Appreciate that. Thank you so much. Appreciate your call, buddy. Appreciate that. You hang in there.
You're
glad
welcome.
to hear you in a much better
mood. God bless everybody. And God bless the veterans and all you people, all our troops. God bless. And God bless Texas and Alabama. Thank you.
All right. You know, the Indiana governor, Mike Pence, folks, look, ABC this week, I think it was, Mike Pence was on, he was on several shows. He defended his position about the state's Religious Freedom Restoration Act at issue here. In case you're wondering what this is, Religious Freedom Restoration Act.
Yeah, what they did is basically re-legalize the First Amendment.
Well, right, but do you morons out there? And I'm sorry, do you progressive Marxist, intellectual, moronic people understand this act was signed into federal law by Clinton more than 20 years ago?
Yeah, 93.
Okay, it lays this framework for ensuring that a very high level of I guess scrutiny is given at any time government actions impinge upon religious liberty of any American. And you just go back to the Hobby Lobby case. But it's amazing how this renegade in chief and everyone around this and these progressives are just taking this out of, these Marxists are taking this out of context. It's just amazing. Go ahead.
Let's go to our international line. I want to say it's country code 15 or 150. I'm not sure. I got to get that down. But international line. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Hey, Doug and Joe. How are y'all doing?
Very well.
This is Bob in Guatemala.
Hey, Bob.
Bob in Guatemala.
Hey, listen.
I bet you it's a little warmer down there than it is up here.
Well, I live up in the mountains, so it's about 52 degrees here tonight. But that's normal. So it's wonderful to have a very nice T-shirt kind of day, and then a nice cool evening with a fire in the fireplace. So,
yeah.
Awesome.
Hey, listen, I've sent you a couple of emails, and I haven't gotten a response. I don't know if I even ought to mention this, what my question has been, because I've really been interested. Can I ask the question anyway? Or do you know what I'm talking about?
About Yemen?
Where?
No,
Yemen, but the second part of that question. Do you have my email in front of you?
Yeah.
I don't know if I can say. Do you want me to say that there or not? I don't know.
Joe,
it might be top.
Where's W? What is the question?
Oh, yeah. No, he's working on it. We've lost touch. I mean, there's nothing nefarious here. He's working on some projects.
He's okay. That's good. That's all I needed to know.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. I mean, no,
okay.
There's no mystery there.
Okay, cool.
So it's okay.
I've been praying for him because I haven't heard anything lately, and it's like, man, I hope he's all right. It's like sometimes when you guys are on, and all of a sudden it's either my internet connection goes down or something else happens, and it's like I can't get on. And the other day I couldn't find Steve Quayle. I couldn't get on you guys. I said, oh my gosh, is this the day it happened? It's on my end of the line. So, I said, I'll start calling people. I said, can you get on? Can you get this point? It's like, yeah. I said, okay, well that's good. So it's all better, but yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, yeah, but that thing about Yemen, I sent you. I know that's a choke point and all that kind of stuff because it was a really good article off of Daily Mail that Steve posted the other day. But I sent you that link to that thing about the Stargate, which was offshore. That when the Somalia pirates were all over the place down there, and people were interdicting against them, and et cetera, et cetera. But I haven't heard anything else about that Stargate lately. But it's like that's right there where it is. So. I didn't know if that had anything to do with all this mess down there or not.
Yeah, I have to look at the story, Bob. I have not opened the link that you sent, but I have read. I did read the sentence above it that you wrote, and I plan on checking that out tonight when I got home. It doesn't seem out of the realm of possibilities. We know that military has been used to protect ancient secrets and ancient technological things that we have no idea that are even there, and it surely could be a possibility. And I'll have to do some digging in there further, and maybe even talk to a few people who might be in the know more so than myself.
Sounds good. Let us know if you find out anything else.
All right, brother. Hey, thank you. You hold the southern. You hold our. Watch our southern flank down there, okay?
Well, hey,
appreciate that.
If you get in the bind, come on down. Hey, Doug. One other thing.
Yes, sir.
I really would like to talk to you about your father-in-law. I know we're not going to do it on the air, but I sure would like to tell you what happened to my mom, and maybe you can do some comparison. So.
Okay. All right. Well, Ray.
How can I talk to you?
We can send you contact info in response to the latest email you sent.
Yeah, we'll watch for a response to that, Bob.
That'd be great, because I'd really like to talk to you. Because and talk to Ted about it too. He could help you too, maybe. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah,
right, brother.
I've been searching different things to help. It's just crazy. All right, brother.
It's like a lot of things. It's like a lot of other things. You guys say, follow the money.
That's
okay?
right. Yeah, you're
okay. Love you guys, and pray for you all the time, and just God keep you safe.
And you as well. Thanks.
God bless you. Have a good night.
Take care.
All right, let's go to area code 414. We're coming to you now. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Hey, this is Fanzilla checking in. How you guys doing tonight?
Good. Glad you're checking in, man. 414. Tell me again where that is.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Milwaukee. Thank you. I should know that. I got family in Milwaukee. All right. That's
shows how often you stay in touch.
Well, yeah.
Right. Okay, I have a question. Is it possible that the world leaders know that there's either an extinction level event coming or financial collapse, etc., and they're using the rows of or the rules of war, or like the world's like a stage to pre-position their militaries, like Russia's here, ours is over theirs, under the cover or act of war, for when the event happens, because it's easier for the foreign militaries to fire on not their own people and ours theirs. You see what I'm saying? It's easier for...
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what Stan stated, that why have foreign military training over here? And Stan's answer to that was, well, they've got no emotional ties or familial ties here. So, who cares? It's easier to... I guess at that level, it's easier to kill someone you have no ties to, emotional or family or otherwise. And you consider, someone different in ideology and even culturally. That's my thinking. But yeah, but why? Okay, so you're saying, is there like an ELE, extinction level event that's perhaps looming in our not too distant future? Well, I don't know if it has to be that. If it wasn't an extinction level event, they wouldn't need the prepositioned assets. However, think of it in terms of the economy. That would be a problem. Because, it would be total anarchy and chaos.
Right, and then like Brother Quill says, he says that maybe that is the plan, but then they're not gonna follow the script. They're gonna take it one step further, and Russia's gonna go ahead and take out the military, the police officers, and so on and so forth. And I want to thank you guys for the quick upload on the YouTube channel. That's a blessing. It's available. It's real quick now. That's nice. I continue to pray for you guys, Steve, Joe, Doug, Pastor Langford, and I also have a one-up on Brother Quayle. I pray in the steam room also. I pray in the shower also on my knees, but I do it at the gym in the steam room. So I have a one-up on Brother Quayle.
There you go.
You guys, I continue to be in my prayers, and have a good night.
All right, good night.
You too. You have a good night. Thanks for calling.
You too. Yep.
God bless. All right, we're going to go to a caller here. They're not in the queue to speak, but I do.
We're going to drag them on. We're going to call you up.
Marilyn, who sent us a letter saying she's been on hold all the time.
Joe has had this letter, by the way, on his studio desk. It taped near the wall.
I've
been
on waiting to find the number.
Yeah,
and I did just
Maryland.
have it here. Let's see. Is
Maryland.
this Maryland? Is this Maryland from North Dakota?
No.
701?
701. We're paging you. See, this is live radio. Can you hear us? We just put you on air. You're on air.
Okay, this is Marilyn. I'll put you back on hold.
All right.
And just to let you know, Marilyn, if you do want to call in, we have been waiting and looking for you.
Paging Marilyn.
You press 1 if you want to come on air, but I'll keep looking in the below the queue section.
That's right.
Until we do find you and get you on air. But in the meantime, we're going to go to area code 870. We're going to go there now. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. 870.
Hey, look, we'll call you, okay? 870. We got your number. We'll call you. We should do that, the certain numbers there. Anyway.
I heard someone. 870?
Yeah, you're up. All right.
Back on hold, and we're going to go back to our international line.
We're going to try this.
Area code country code 197.
19, I think. Yeah.
Or 19. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Would that be me?
That would
Jerusalem?
be you. Yes.
Okay. Just as a point of hello, Shalom from Jerusalem. As a point of historical fact, the Emperor Hadrian, who reigned during 132 to 136 in the Common Era, during the Second Roman-Jewish War, he suppressed the Bar Kokhba revolt in Judea. It was spelled in Latin Judaea, Judea. And he murdered 580,000 Jews that still remained after the temple was destroyed. And but the Romans suffered so many casualties that he persecuted the remaining Jews, burning Torah scrolls on the ruins of the Temple Mount. And because he had so much hatred of what he went through with fighting the Bar Kokhba revolt, he wanted to erase any memory of Judaism in that area, in that province. So he renamed the name of Judea to Syria Palestina. Palestina is the Latin word for Philistine. In Hebrew, that's Plishtim, which means invaders, like Goliath was the Philistine. So that I just wanted to educate you on that.
Well, we are so educated, but we also okay. Now, respectfully speaking, now, okay, the name Palestine. Okay, once again, okay, do we not? Is there not controversy over the origin of the word Palestine, despite what you just said? Okay, with respect to the Judea and such. The word Palestine.
Well, before 1947, it was called Palestine ever since Hadrian named it Palestine. And as a matter of fact, the first Jews that came to this area after the Mandate were called Jewish Palestinians. You know, my father-in-law, when he came here before 1947, was a Palestinian. That was the name of this area. It was so named after Hadrian renamed it. They honored that name. They didn't call it Judea. They didn't call it Israel.
Okay, but if you go back to the 5th century BC, the historian Herodotus, I believe it was a Greek historian, called the area, and I can't pronounce this in Greek, so I'm not even going to try, but it's reflective of Palestine, perhaps. But if you go forward in the 2nd century, and I think this is where you pick up with Judea, it was renamed Palestina in an attempt to minimize the Jewish identification with the land of Israel.
Yeah, it was minimized. It was to erase any trace of Judea or Judaism. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay,
and
so we're on the same
actually
page. Okay,
right.
What we're saying, however, is much versus the Muslims, for example, the Jews have the title deed and claim to the land 1,000-fold more than the Arab Palestinians. And people today are confusing or not paying attention to the not just history, but the biblical covenant to the Jewish people, and you cannot do that.
Well,
I mean,
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. There's no question about it. But it was actually Hadrian, who was the emperor, who renamed it officially. If you look it up in, I just got it on Wikipedia, but I knew about it beforehand because Rabbi Kahana used to talk about that. It was Hadrian he was like in the 2nd century. He so despised Judea that he had to rename it to erase that name. So that's where it came from, Palestina. That's just wanted to clarify that.
Gotcha.
But anyway, you wouldn't know that we were surrounded by so many enemies because everybody's very excited about the upcoming Passover festival. Everybody's a smile on their face, busy getting ready for the holiday. And I see a heavy presence of soldiers on the street, much heavier than in the past. And we're aware of the danger we're in, but there's nothing new to this area. So I just want to let you know that people are still very upbeat. Mm-hmm.
What do you folks feel about America's abandonment, or the Obama's abandonment, and about face on Israel? I mean, maybe that sounds like a trite question, but
no, it was quite predicted actually. We kind of basically knew who he was from the very beginning, and it is quite shocking. It's unprecedented, and he's the new Haman, who's the arch enemy of the Jewish people, as so quoted by an Israeli American rabbi. I believe his name is Rabbi Riskin, and it's applicable. He is the arch. You could call him the new Hitler or the new Haman, who wanted to destroy the Jewish people that were in Persia. So, yeah, he's we're horrified, but it's expected. It was expected. We're not shocked. So, but I want to give you your other callers time if you have.
Thank you, dear. Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
And you have a very joyous and blessed Passover, and shalom, shalom.
And thank you for calling.
Thank you very much. Thank you. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
God bless. Bye.
And if there's any question, Joe, when an ill will blows against the Christians or Jews, we stand behind the Jews and the Christians, okay? And that's, of course, a playoff of Obama.
Love those international calls.
Yeah. And it's great. I mean, I'm not sure what time it is over there. Took our clocks down.
Let's go to 530. 530, you're up next. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report, and I believe it's about 5 or 6 a.m. over there, or 1:45, 5 or 6. 530, you're live.
All right, blessings from San Mateo, actually, from Pollock Pines. But in any case, have you ever heard of Kim Clement, a modern-day prophet?
No, I'm not sure I caught that name. Say it again.
Kim Clement, Kim space Clemit. He's a modern day prophet, and he, on the 28th of this month, that he's prophesied something that is absolutely shocking that I think you're going to love. You're just going to love it to pieces. You're going to be so giddy at the end of the day when after you hear it that you can't hear it enough. But he made a prophecy or prophetic statement. Within 2 weeks, you'll see the following actions happen with Geneva, Switzerland, and in the United States. That he started out with this prophecy. He prophesied that in Geneva that I don't, this is going far out in left field, basically. I don't know if I should say that, but he's prophesied Michael and Gabriel, the archangels. God is going to be sending them to Geneva to clean things up where Kerry kind of botched things up. And then after they get done over there, he's going to send Michael, Archangel Michael and Archangel Gabriel to Pennsylvania, avenue or street or whatever it is in Washington. What is it, street or avenue?
Avenue.
Okay. Well, I don't feel really comfortable telling you this, but this is from Kim Clement. I saw it on Roku on TV. I was trying to figure out a way to forward the video to you, but I wasn't able to. But it's on Roku, and it's Kim Clement Network, and he claims to be a modern-day prophet. I don't know if it is or not, but when I was watching this video of it, as Steve Quayle, I had no idea on the reference of dunamis power. He kept on explaining it, but his explanation of dunamis power fails in comparison what I witnessed. You actually, with Kim Clement as a prophet, that you actually felt the dunamis power. It was literally tangible, and he has prophesied that within 2 weeks, he gave a time frame. 2 weeks, you watch Geneva and you watch Washington. He sent the two archangels to clean up Obama's mess, what he made. And at the beginning he said, one person can curse a country, which I think he was referring to Obama, So I think in layman's terms, God is going to whack Obama across the head and make his head spin like a top, which I'm sure you're going to love. And it came from him.
Well, I think we don't. We certainly don't need anyone to do what God will do, and that is to straighten things out. I mean, all we have to do is trust in God. We don't know this person, of course. However, that being said, it doesn't matter. What matters is the ultimate rebuking that this renegade in chief is going to get, that these people in Congress are going to get, the fact that we are going. It's just like Pastor Langford said. The immorality, everything that we've done in this country is we must repent, and we're going to have to answer for this. So, but however, God's judgment is coming. So, God's judgment is coming.
Well,
but go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I know that you more or less agree with me that you got you would love to send dog poop to Obama. Sorry. Well, but
yeah,
I love that idea.
Yeah, I think. Well, thank you very much for your call, and that's a reference. I think I made a reference. A passing reference to. My goodness, I'd just love to send a bag of dog poop there because, really, I don't know. I can't remember in what context I did say that, but. We certainly don't wish him any harm, or anyone else. But we got to send a message. We have to send a message, don't we? We've got to stand up and say, not us, not here, not now. We're not going to allow this to happen to our future generations. And we have to stand up for what is right, what is moral, and what is for God. We have to stand up for as Christians. We have to be Christians. So. It's going to be a cleanup on aisle 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, okay, and as well as the Congress as well, too. I think.
Yeah. Well, I'll make it really short. I'll say two short things. I just love how much generosity you have towards Barack Obama, and also if you can. Watch on Roku. I don't know if you have Roku. You might be able to catch it on YouTube or whatever. But it's Kim Clement.
Yeah, we got. Yeah,
okay.
we got that. We'll take a look and we'll evaluate this and who knows? There's a lot of people out there, but we want to thank you so much for that piece of information. Interesting indeed. All right, we're going to try to fit one more call in here. My apologies, caller. We cut you off too soon. We're going to try to fit one more caller in here before the end of the program because there's just a lot of information that we got to get through. A lot of people that would like to get through, and I think I just hit a button here. Did I? That just knocked a few people off. Did I just clear half the board?
I don't know, but we still have some people on. We're going to go to area code 561. 561, we're coming to you. You're live on the Hagmann Hagmann Report.
Hello, this is Phil McKenzie from Florida.
Hey, Phil.
I just wanted to say I own a tobacco shop, and I have to go through all the government's mandates and taxes and all that, and by October, all shops and all people are going to have credit cards that have chips in them, so I have to get a processor that can actually take it, you know what I mean? Make sure you have to get a special processor or stuff. So what's the next step after everything will be transacted by a chip from a credit card? Ugh.
Well,
this is coming to the top, you know, this is to our home. This is really happening, whether people like it or not.
You know, I got a new debit card, ATM card in the mail. I mean, I've had my old one. Well, I don't know. You know how the banks send you a new card because your old one expires. Mine expired, I don't know, last month or something, or this month. Anyway, I got a new one, and the old one had. I took the peeling off of it, the front layer off of it, and here embedded in, I mean, the tiniest, thinnest square, there was a chip inside. And I don't know why that should surprise me or anyone else, but in the newer cards that we've gotten, Joe's got a similar one. It's almost translucent, where you can see the chip, or the, what would you call that? I guess the circuit chip thing.
Right. A customer came in. He got one because he's kind of a stock market person and all that, so he likes to be ahead of the time or whatever. He's even concerned. And he's not even like a Christian guy looking at the prophecies and everything.
Well, how can you? Okay, so because I know that I've been involved in businesses where they've taken credit cards, and you know, it used to be the old machines that you put the card in, the 3 pages of carbon paper, and people probably have no clue. The younger people have got no clue what I'm talking about. Yeah, do you know what I'm talking about? You set the card in, paper over it.
Yeah, actually.
And you move the handle from left to right and back again, and you sign it, and it destroys the carbon.
Old school.
Yeah, I know. It shows my age, but well, it's coming, isn't it? I mean, you see it.
Mm-hmm.
It's coming.
Right. And I'm just glad that there's people like you guys out there. I asked the Lord about 3 years ago. I was like, you know what? I just am sick of everything, like the drugs, the alcohol, blah, blah, blah. I was like, just give me something to do, you know, like someone to listen to, someone to help me through. And I looked up Steve Quayle, and he happened to be on your show, and I've been listening to you guys like every day.
Well, cool, man. Cool, I appreciate that. You know, and thanks for being a business owner. But just remember, you didn't build that business that you're.
Oh gosh.
Think about that.
Thanks for that.
Taxes.
Yeah.
Oh,
right.
Man. Oh, well, it's great to have you call in and talk about this, and yeah, I think people need to start paying attention to what we're carrying around with us. And but by the way, those cards with the chips in them, walk by, and they're even more sensitive. If you walk by one of those things on the counter, what do you call those things? That you scan. Well, you wave the card over them. You know.
Yeah.
They're more sensitive, and even if you like hand the card to the cashier, that scanner thing could very well pick it up. So invest perhaps in some wallet kind of thing that'll protect that. Anyway, caller, God bless you, man. Thank you so much.
Yeah, God bless you guys.
We're out of time. All right, buddy.
That'll do it for tonight. Tomorrow we will be back here with Doc Marquis. He will be our guest tomorrow night. Not going to want to miss it. Yeah, he is a friend, a previous guest of the show. His website, It's a God Things Production 777, and you're not going to want to miss what he has to say. It's a God Thing Production 777.
Yeah, we'll link to it off of HagmannHagmann.com and tomorrow's
He's a well sought after speaker. He is the creator of a huge DVD series on the apostasy of the church and the coming deception in the end times that we live in.
And Thursday, Steve Quayle, and 2 guests to be announced, and then Friday,
Nathan Leal.
Oh my goodness!
Information jam-packed. rest of the week. You're not going to want to miss it. Until tomorrow with Doc Marquis, God bless, stay safe, have a great weekend.
Good night.
Or have a great night.